All right, good evening, everyone. Let me call this village board meeting to order on Monday, February 6th, 2023, and ask you if you would all please rise and join the village board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee LaBedz?
Here.
Trustee Scaletta?
Here.
Trustee Bertucci?
Here.
Trustee Grasse?
Here.
Trustee Tinaglia? Trustee Canty? Trustee Baldino?
Here.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Here.
President Hayes?
Here. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. And we are joined by Trustee Tinaglia. Thank you. And we do have one set of minutes to approve tonight. That's from the village board meeting on January 17, 2023. Are there any changes or passes?
Pass.
Passed by both trustees Baldino and Schwingbeck.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by trustee LaBedz, seconded by trustee Scaletta. Further questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we move on to the approval of the accounts payable, and I call on trustee Bertucci.
I'll move approval of the warrant register for the check dated January 30th, 2023, in the amount of $3,831,740.75.
Second.
Motion by trustee Bertucci, seconded by trustee Grasse. Any questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Grasse?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Baldino?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. There are no recognitions or presentations tonight, so we'll move on to citizens to be heard. And I do have 3 blue cards from individuals who wish to address the board on items not on the agenda. And they are all just reminded of the 3-minute time limit. And the first is Debbie Fisher. Welcome.
Thank you.
You can go ahead and
Okay.
start.
Thank you to the board for allotting this time to express my concern. It is not in our best interest for the Chicago Bears to come to Arlington Heights. This idea is so problematic. We do not have the capacity to accommodate something of this magnitude. It would completely disrupt our lives and not for the better. The traffic alone would be a nightmare. I call into question the motives of this move, and I have to wonder if this has to do with money. The residents of Arlington Heights should be able to vote on this matter because it directly impacts our lives in so many ways. Why is this decision up to only a handful of people when the repercussions of this will affect thousands? How can you know what the people of our town want when you haven't even asked? And now you're expecting us to pay for the mini Chicago that's going to be built next to the stadium. Please reconsider this move and abandon this project. The Chicago Bears should stay in Chicago where they belong.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
Thank you.
Next is Roberta Fisher. Is it Robert or Roberta? It's Roberta, okay.
Oh, yes, thank you. I am concerned about the Bear Stadium as well because many different aspects. The vision that has been presented is only a small portion of what's going to be built there, and it seems like the stadium is just on the plans that I've seen is about that big, and they're going to build another village and with condos and stores and everything like that. It just seems to be overwhelming. They don't show any kind of parking lots or what the infrastructure around it is going to be like. It seems at least a little bit ill-planned, and I was wondering if the stadium, the idea of it has ever been on the agenda for Arlington Heights. I know there are a lot of the surrounding cities, Palatine and others, have voiced their opinions, but nobody seems to come to the meetings or be involved in any way. And they're hoping, I think, to close in this quarter, which is in March. And I don't know how much has been done to notify the citizens of the surrounding area of really what's going to happen, because there are so many different things, the infrastructure, the traffic, the crime, and things like that. I'd like to see another rendering of what's going to happen, including all the surrounding areas, and in addition, that we have to pay for it too. So I'm just very concerned that the citizens are not fully informed about really what's going to happen here.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me just address the two of your comments very briefly. And we've said all of this in public. You can have a seat.
Oh.
Thank- We've said all of this in public for many, many months now, perhaps over the last year, year and a half. These plans are very preliminary at this point. And the village board has not approved anything other than a preliminary development agreement with the Chicago Bears, which just lays out a roadmap, a process for going forward. But the stadium is not a done deal yet. And so we've said that many, many times. We are very, very early in the process. They have not closed on the property yet. Even if they do close, that doesn't mean they're going to build a stadium. And so we don't know exactly what's going to be there. If they do build a stadium in the other adjacent property, but we will have input. You will have input. The residents will have input on all of these issues that you talked about, traffic and you name it, transportation. You will have input. Trust me, that's the way representative democracy works. And so we don't make any decisions without informing our public and taking input from them. And I can assure you and everyone else in this community that the public will have fair and many opportunities to weigh in before any formal votes are taken. Mr. Recklass, anything to add?
No, I think you covered it well.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mr. Moons.
Very good. Thank you, President Hayes. In my opinion, President Hayes, there is an epidemic of traffic speeding on our neighborhood streets. And the board seems to not really care too much about that for some reason. As you know, and it's not just on Cleveland either, but it's on streets like Old Buffalo Grove Road and North Dryden too, for example. But I want to hand credit to the staff that have recognized the speeding problem on Cleveland, and they have offered to install striping as a semi-permanent traffic calming strategy there. Now, striping would be 2 parallel lines to the curb and then a skip dash down the center. However, though, before that striping can be installed, they're requiring that some Cleveland residents vote on it first. Depending upon your gender, and where you might live on Cleveland, a ballot was mailed out on January 19th to be returned by this Friday. The ballot was sent out mostly to the male head of household in single-family homes, and it's 1 vote per household. Even worse yet is staff is counting non-returned or abstained ballots as a no vote to the striping idea. Now, since we all know our Robert's Rules of Order here, there is no such thing as an abstention vote. Mr. President, that is an oxymoron. It's one of the silliest things that I've seen. I'm not sure how this letter got out there. Staff has assigned a no vote to an abstention or a non-return ballot. Of course, this voting procedure heavily biases the outcome to fail and for nothing to happen there again. So, for example, if you send out 100 ballots, 10 for some reason get thrown in the garbage, you're starting with 10 negative votes on the issue. This is an unfair voting procedure, and it's way too late to change it now. I do appreciate staff recognizing the speeding problem in Cleveland, for sure, and for offering to do this option. But when did village policy start to allow limited residential voting on public investment? Man, I can hardly wait to vote on whether or not we should give away our tax money to the loser bears. Finally, the Board of Trustees could address this speeding plague by drafting a village-wide speed policy to direct staff to fix these problems. This board policy would be based on speed thresholds that are transparent to the public so they know what we're gauging the speed thresholds against, and be effective to finally improving the safety in our neighborhoods. Thank you. Oh, one other thing, President Hayes, I wanted to give you also this letter we received. Shows the male head of the household only, one vote for you and your input, although there may be many other drivers in the house that could vote, that should have a vote. Our condominiums were not included. And the last line here, not responding will be considered to be against the proposed changes.
Okay, why don't you give it to the village clerk, if you would? Thanks. All right, thank you, Mr. Moons. Let me just say in response that I would wholeheartedly disagree with your assertion that the village board does not care about traffic conditions and speeding problems within the community. We've directed staff to investigate many different areas within the community that have experienced these problems. And so we take it very seriously. Safety is one of our primary concerns, the health, safety, and welfare of our residents and our overall community. And so I would wholeheartedly disagree with your assertion that we don't care about it. So next, Melissa.
Melissa Kerr speaking. Abolish the zero loan program, the zero interest loan program, and I think it's worth about $1 million. Give the money back to the taxpayers. When you ask Cook County to prepare our property tax bill, ask them to put our website on the property tax bill. When I was at the police pension fund meeting, they said they can usually pay all their annual pension payments with their income from the property tax receipts for that year. So does that mean their investments are overfunded if they never have to use their invested funds? And abolish tax increment finance districts. The more the taxing bodies levy, the more money goes to the tax increment finance districts. Under VAH.com, Government Boards and Commissions, the Joint Review Board, intent and purpose. The Joint Review Board consists of representatives of the taxing districts as mandated in state statute with the purpose of providing advisory recommendations to the village board on the establishment of new tax increment financing districts and major amendments to existing tax increment financing districts. The Joint Review Board also meets annually to review the village's financial reports to the state comptroller. I think there's about $8 million in tax increment finance fund bank accounts right now. Will you please add more information to the Joint Review Board and website blurb? Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Anybody else in the audience wish to address the board on items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we will close our citizens to be heard portion and move on to old business, of which there is none, and move on then to the consent agenda. Are there any members of the board who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Any members of the audience wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Seeing none? Let me guess, permit fee waiver?
Correct.
All right, that shall be removed. Consent petitions and communications, permit fee waiver A, item A. That shall be removed and considered under that portion of the agenda. Anybody else in the audience wish to remove an item? Seeing none, I'd go back to the board. Are there any members of the board who wish to vote no or pass on any remaining items on the consent agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the remaining items.
So moved. Second.
Motion by trustee Tinaglia, seconded by trustee Schwingbeck. Roll call.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee Baldino?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Grasse?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Moving on then to new business, and we do have 3 items to consider tonight. The first is an amendment to the LUV ordinance 13-005 to allow a parking variation for the Seasons Office Center located at 129-151 West Rand Road. Petitioners present? Platt, why don't you come forward? And just introduce yourself, if you would, and tell us what you're looking to do here.
James Platt. I am with CAM Services, which is a consulting helping Dr. Mina Barsom, who is a dentist in town. He's a dental business in the Seasons Park, which is off of Rand Road on the north side of town. It has a business there over 10 years, looking to expand into the space next to him. And because of that, the office parking has now changed, or we're looking for it to be changed to medical parking, which requires a change to the variation that currently exists. So this time, that's what we're looking for, and I think staff can probably fill in the rest of it.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Platt. Charles?
Thank you. As Mr. Platt mentioned, this property is on Rand Road. It's about 32,000 square feet. It was originally approved as a general office development that would require 104 parking spaces. The property has 88 on site, and when originally approved, had shared parking with the adjacent restaurant of 19 spaces for a total of 107. In 2013, the surgical center that's at the location there petitioned for a land use variation and a parking variation. At that time, the building was about 75% vacant. That was approved with some stipulations by the village board. The property is this L-shaped property on Rand Road, just west of the Annex Shopping Center. And in front of it, just to the kind of northwest, is the Sun Shui restaurant. Prior to COVID, Sun Shui used to be open at lunch. Since then, they're just open in the evening. The main issues were just some minor landscaping, code compliance. There's 3 trees that need to be reinstalled that had died over the years, and then the traffic and parking, primarily the parking situation. So both staff and the petitioner conducted some parking counts. This is the required parking. They required 139 spaces, and they have 88 on site. Initially, they did have a shared parking agreement with Sun Shui, and at some point that kind of fell by the wayside. And then the Sun Shui started putting signs up and towing some vehicles or threatening to tow vehicles. And then more recently, they've re-engaged with Sun Shui, and they do have a shared parking agreement for 33 spaces. It's not a perpetual easement agreement and can be canceled within 30 days. So there are some concerns, about the long-term, parking if they can't secure a long-term parking agreement. This is just a summary of some of the parking counts. So the peak demand, peak count that was observed by the petitioner, with counts that they did during a week and a half time period, was a 97. The peak exceeded the 88 or thereabouts on 12 hourly occasions, primarily on a Wednesday and a Monday, between 10 to 11 in the morning and about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So we took that peak demand, we adjusted it for the vacant spaces in the center, and then created a new total peak demand. So you can see the total peak, based on counts, could be as high as 113. On a not on a Monday and a Wednesday. The other times, can adequately be handled from a parking point of view. So in summary, the management of the office center, and the difference here is these are all individually owned condo units. So it's not a general office building where a leasing agent can manage the leases over time. So they're individually owned condo units. So they have re-engaged with Sun Shui, the restaurant. They've got that 33 space parking, shared parking agreement. We think that's a great approach. The concern is if that goes away, what happens then? And so there were a series of kind of options that were laid out with the Plan Commission. This kind of chart quickly summarizes it. On the left is the variation that was approved in 2013, and then kind of looking at what the projected peak would be with the vacant office space occupied. So you'd have a peak parking of 106% on the 107 spaces, and that's 88 spaces plus assuming the 19 shared parking. The initial request from the petitioner was to get a variation to 88 spaces. Neither staff nor the Plan Commission supported that because of the, the parking demand from the primarily medical office uses in the center. And then in yellow is highlighted what Plan Commission recommended, which was allowing the variation to basically 121 spaces, but that does require a 33-space shared parking agreement with the adjacent property owner or another property owner. So there are a couple of options long-term if this easement agreement were to kind of fall by the wayside. And, I think the property owners indicated their intent to continue with that shared parking arrangement. But to the northwest, there's a building with some vacant property behind it. There is if they were able to acquire that, come in, go through the appropriate zoning, you could potentially get up to 40 spaces. That's a rough estimate. May not be quite as many as that when you figure out stormwater detention. That's immediately adjacent to the parking area, so that would be very convenient. To the southeast, highlighted in blue, is another parcel that has a vacant property behind it. Again, probably get about 40 spaces in that area. Again, you'd have to accommodate stormwater detention. That's behind the building, so it's a little more difficult for anyone to access that parking lot and access the building. Realistically, for that to work, you'd have to kind of break through the building and provide an access to that site. There is a refuse and utility area that perhaps could be eliminated to connect to that site. So those are a couple of longer term options in addition to trying to secure a more permanent perpetual shared parking agreement with Sun Shui. So the Plan Commission recommended approval of the petition subject to a number of conditions. Number one, if the agreement with Sun Shui to lease a minimum of 33 spaces is discontinued, then the petitioner does not secure similar parking arrangements as determined by the village at its sole discretion within 120 days. After the discontinuance of that shared parking agreement, then the variation may be terminated by the village if after an administrative review and the village determines that parking demand on the site is not adequately addressed. And then a requirement that they notify the village within 3 business days of termination of the parking agreement. We discussed the condition 1 with attorney Hart Passman and felt it was kind of cumbersome. And so this was a suggestion after consultation with the attorney to kind of simplify the agreement. It kind of goes without saying that if they don't have enough parking and the agreement goes away and the board terminates it, then they can really only lease to general office. Again, it's a bit more complicated because these are condo unit buildings, but this would be the suggested amendment to kind of simplify that condition a little bit. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Platt, had you seen this amended recommendation before tonight?
Did not.
No, okay. And can you take the time to digest it, if you would?
Well, the concern we have is that by taking that portion out, you're not identifying what the consequences are, which we think is important for the HOA to identify, that they can't be re-tenanted back as medical without a more permanent solution, we think is an important piece of this. Again, this is a petition brought by Dr. Mina Barson, who will eventually own 2 of the 2 parts of this center. So the HOA needs to take an active position, which they are currently doing. Again, this this allows the village to terminate the agreement and doesn't leave any more direction beyond that. I don't know if that's from a legal point, if there was a purpose for that.
Mr. Passman, do you want to address that? Your rationale behind suggesting this amendment?
Sure, and as Director Perkins indicated, this was a collaborative effort. The idea behind it, and please correct me if I have this incorrect, but if they don't, they're short on parking, as the report indicates. If the agreement with Sun Shui goes away for whatever reason, then as a matter of zoning law and as a matter of this proposed approval, they will be short on parking. And so our sense is there's no real further need of having some other administrative review, nor can we predict today what the bounds of that should be. How would anyone decide it? The whole point of having off-street parking minimums in zoning codes is to set an expectation and understanding that if you want a certain use, and that's anybody, not just this property owner, you had better have enough parking, whether on-site or through appropriate off-site arrangements, to meet that need. Eliminating this would not cancel the authority of a property owner to seek additional relief. That is always an option that a property owner has. They can file an application. But the idea is this variation and allowing this use, which has this more intense parking demand under our code, is only possible if an agreement with Sun Shui or similar to it is in place. We thought there was no need to have some type of kind of vague review by staff or by the board at that time.
That's pretty good.
Okay, all right, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Passman. All right, let's go to the board. Trustee Tinaglia.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor Hayes. So Charles and Hart, let's say it does go away. Let's say something happens and somebody decides that there's no longer going to be this agreement. Are we prepared to behave in a way that is reactionary? In other words, if there are complaints, then we go and do something about it, or do we just let it be? I guess that what I'm asking is if the build out happens and you've got the square footage that's medical now, but some of the parking that should be there is just not for whatever reason, what happens then? Are we going to go and close doors? Are we going to put fines out, or are we just going to be quiet until someone starts complaining? What's the process then?
That's a good question. I mean, so the trigger here is that they would have to notify the village within 3 days of termination of that shared parking agreement. Mm-hmm. And then we'd have conversations with them on what are they going to do, how they're going to address the parking. In reality, it's in their best interest, because if their customers start getting towed and things of that nature, then those businesses are going to suffer. So collectively, they will need to come up with a solution if there's nowhere else for their customers to park.
Right. So then I'll turn my question to Jim. So what will you do, or what will your client do? Or are you here today to tell us that you don't really need all this parking? Is this just a mathematical equation that doesn't fit your need because it's part of our ordinance, and that if it were up to you, you wouldn't do any of this? In other words, if the agreement were to go away, would you still be fined, or would there be cars being towed, and would it be a problem?
I think the Seasons Office Park does see that there is a need for additional parking. That's why they've always had a conversation with Sun Shui, because they've been the most convenient way of alleviating some of that. And Sun Shui has had 19 of their parking spaces in addition to what they're required by code, which is why originally that's what was being leased, because it wasn't impacting the restaurant, but it was helping benefit the Seasons Office Park.
Sure. They had an abundance, and you needed some, and nobody was hurt by that.
Correct. So I think the HOA at this point has, in the past, has made attempts for those two options. The third one that's being included is also in ongoing talks with Sun Shui to eventually look at getting a first right of refusal to purchase that property, so that they, in fact, then could own that and control the parking better for themselves. Ultimately, this is a solution that needs to be done because from the very beginning, when this office park was built, the board and staff agreed that this was not enough parking, but still allowed it through a variation. And originally, we were coming forward to this board with an amendment to that variation, but staff chose to not allow that amendment, even though it was their recommendation, and actually put a new variation in place. So my concern is kind of an all or nothing proposition. I don't want to leave.
Well, but I think I'll argue with you on that. I think what Hart said made a lot of sense. The fact that it would be impossible for us to forecast how to handle that later and write ordinances that may never matter. But at the time when it does happen, if it were to happen, then we'd have to come together and make some sense out of it. And I guess the whole question that I'm asking about is the space built out, the expansion? Is the expansion built out?
No, the expansion is part of this petition. The focus is on the parking, but it is currently in permit waiting for approval based on this issue.
Okay.
Mr. Eckles, did you have something?
Just a point of clarification for Trustee Tinaglia's question is that when you look at the way that recommendation is written, there is some latitude and some discretion given to the village, whoever is at the village at that time, in there. We're saying that the petitioner has to secure a substantially similar agreement if that thing's. I mean, again, so that's language that's subject to some review. It's at the village's sole discretion, so this isn't a negotiation, but, the village can make a determination as to whether this is any new agreement is substantially similar enough. And then also it says that within 120 days, which is a fair amount of time to work out some kind of agreement, the variation may be terminated by the village. And so I just wanted to point that out, that there is some discretion, put in this recommendation to allow the powers that be to try to work something out in the event that this
Right, and that's what we're all here for. We're here to try and find a way to solve a problem for them, for everybody, and not make a problem a bigger problem. I mean, I think we all can agree with that.
Yes.
So that's why I asked the question at the very beginning. Do you and your client feel that you need this extra parking, or are you sharing with us that the rest of all of the condo owners feel that they will need this parking? Will they be like, holy cow, these guys just took over so many stalls now with this new medical practice, there's none left for us? Where are we at on this right now? What's the temperature out there?
Okay, I think for clarity, the parking studies that have been done and the calculations by staff has already assumed office usage, which is 8 parking spaces for this new addition that the doctor would like to build out. The reality is that the doctor is not increasing his staff, so there's no additional employees. He's not increasing his hours, and one of the main reasons for him doing the expansion is because COVID has now put into permanent usage new protocols for sanitation. So even though he has 5 current spaces for patients, he's never able to have 5 patients at one time because you're always down a room or 2 because it's being cleaned from the previous, during the changeover. So by having the new rooms, he's actually able to ramp up to his new numbers. So the reality is he hopes to have 4 new patients in this new space, which has already been allocated as 8 for office use. So we feel that there's going to be little or no impact to the numbers that are currently there because that's already been accounted for. If he was increasing his staff, that might have a higher impact, but he has no plans to do that. He just needs more patient rooms so that he can stay busier due to the protocol for sanitation.
Okay, thanks.
Trustee Bertucci.
Okay, so I just have a few questions. First, Charles and Hart, when did we make this change? When did you guys come to this agreement or decide to strike out some of that verbiage?
It was about a week and a half ago, something like that. We had a conversation, and then we're putting this together.
And my second question is why was the petitioner not informed of that and had to be surprised today?
Well, in hindsight, that was an error on our part, and we
Okay.
should have informed the petitioner, so I'll take full responsibility for that.
Okay, no, I mean, we all make errors, I just wanted to confirm that. Okay, thank you. So the other question that I have is, and I think I saw it, but just refresh my memory on the lease with the restaurant. For what term is that? The current one, is it 3 years, was it, or?
It doesn't have I don't believe it has a time limit on it. It's a month-to-month agreement.
And they can pull it at any time?
You can pull it any time
30 days
because
notice.
they want to have the ability, if people start to abuse it, which is where the problem first occurred during COVID when
Got
the
it.
restaurant wasn't open.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So, and what I'm hearing from Trustee Tinaglia's questioning and the discussion is the petitioner is in some agreement that it would be better to just, let's get some extra parking spaces other than just in the event of nobody can read the future. It's like trying to say, what's the stock market going to be 3 weeks from now, you know?
Agreed.
So you guys are comfortable with the fact that you should increase and it would seem to me that having talked to the doctor and you about this and looking at it, that you guys would understand that if the restaurant, for some reason, terminated the agreement, that you would be looking at alternatives and the ones that Charles pointed out, you know, behind the other two buildings, and certainly be seeking that out with the whole business owners association, so to speak, of the condos, not just with the doctor.
Correct. The homeowner association for the condominium for commercial condos have already committed to keeping this on their agenda now.
Okay.
We've already made initial contacts with each of the 3 properties that are available and are going to open discussions now and not wait for, you know, some doomsday date for it to come. We'd rather be ahead of this because we know this is something that they're going to be there for a long time. We want to solve the problem.
Okay. Okay, so before the strikeout, were you in agreement with all the recommendations for the subject to the recommendation subject to the following?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
In fact, with Mr. Recklos explaining, you know, the latitude that's there, I think the portion that's stricken, it does not seem as stringent as it initially looked. So that gives us at least some latitude for discussion.
Okay, so now we got the petitioner feeling comfortable, staff, you're comfortable, Charles?
Yes, yeah, we're comfortable with the recommendation, with this modification. Also, I just want to clarify, I just looked up the shared parking agreement is a 1-year term. It can be automatically renewed for 1 year, but it can be canceled within 30 days.
Okay, all right, thanks, Charles. So we've got agreement, petitioner agreement, staff. I've been looking through things, it looks like the commissions were all good with this. So with that in mind, I'm going to make a motion to approve as indicated here. If you want, I can read the whole thing. Randy, is that, or hard?
We don't need to read the whole thing.
Okay.
It's on the record.
So,
Make a recommendation to approve subject to the conditions.
I'll second it.
including the amended recommendation.
Correct.
Right, okay. Who was the second? So motion by trustee Bertucci, seconded by
And I
trustee
do have a
Tinaglia.
question when you have time.
Trustee Scaletta, did you still have a question?
I did. Hi. Thanks for being here tonight. Charles, a couple of questions for you. I mean, I understand why we have different parking ratios. Can you explain to me the Elevate Physical Therapy? It's 1 for every 250 square feet, where everything else is 1 to 200 square feet or 300?
Yes, they're listed in a parking table as a physical therapy establishment, not a medical office. So their ratio is, a little different than a medical office at 1 to 200.
It's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a prior written agreement with Sunshui.
My understanding there was for 19 spaces. I've nobody seems to see it. I've seen it. But our understanding is that was, when the project was first approved. It was first subdivided, the property was subdivided in 2001, and then later on, came in for the building development. And our understanding is that was predicated on the 19 space, parking agreement. There are two ingress egress easements across the Sunshui property into the site, and I think the village was under the belief that that also included the 19 parking spaces.
And that still exists. That's on title, right?
The easement, I looked at the survey today. The easement is still on the platter survey, but there's no reference to any shared parking.
Okay. Because, the ingress and egress out of their driveway is right in, right out.
Correct.
Yes. I was there, so I'm positive of it. So, when I look at the language, and so they can be given a 30-day notice, and then they have 120 days to remedy. So we're looking at a total of 5 months that this could be up in the air?
Yes.
If the agreement went away?
In theory, yes. Mm-hmm.
In writing?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so, Mr. Platt, you talk about, the first right of refusal, but that's not in the agreement, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then when you say that you're in negotiations with these other surrounding properties, is that to purchase the land to build an additional parking lot?
Yeah, the HOA's intent is to purchase property so that they're not bound by another lease.
Okay. Because I'm only a little bit nervous with this, Mr. Passman, in that, you have like a 4,900 square foot vacant space here, and, it's one for every 300 square feet. So if somebody else comes in, isn't there hardship that somebody else gobbled up all the parking?
Well, we have assumed that 4,900 square feet would be a general office, and that would have a parking demand of 16 spaces on top of the peak counted demand of 97. So that that was the reason why we didn't support the variation request to go to 88, because clearly, that there was would be overparked. It's overparked today on certain times of the day and the week.
I understand why it's on there the way it is. I'm just saying, this other space, 143, with almost 5,000 square feet,
Correct.
That person now is at a disadvantage. They can only lease to office at this point.
Correct. Or they would have to come back and petition to amend this, because the parking demand would be greater than what the 139 that we're looking at today, and we'd have to evaluate that at that time.
But they would have a unique situation because they've been put into this situation because we've approved others.
I would say, I don't think we can presuppose how any future relief requests would be fairly adjudicated, whether it would meet our standards. But I would imagine then, as was done for this, and as common, and the board knows this well, if there's a future request for relief based on this scenario or any other, the applicant would be wise to bring evidence that it's okay to proceed with a tenant for that space because they can show that the spaces are not being used. Who knows whether the usage maybe the usage goes down dramatically in the time between now and then. But I would say that the appropriate analysis, Trustee Scaletta, is not would it be a problem or hardship for that would-be tenant. It's about the owner of the center here. If they can demonstrate that they can't find parking and don't need parking such that they can either not rent the space or have a parking problem, that's something that I'm sure the Plan Commission and this board in the future will evaluate.
But that's only if one person owned the entire parcel. Because these are all condoed.
Sure, but that's true. That's a good point, but it's still a common issue for the overall.
Agree.
It is one zoning lot for our purposes.
I just find this a little bit messy because it's condoed.
Fair.
And just want to make sure that we're at least discussing it without
It's a fair point, and I think that this one was complex, and we tried to be creative to address all of that, but certainly this is a unique circumstance.
I know you can't speak on behalf of the HOA, but your client, how are we going to get employees to park over on the Sun Shui so that there's plenty of parking for the patients, customers, visitors?
I think much in the same way that most other parking lots are controlled, where it is owner encouraged to do that because they don't want the patient complaints of having walking into a surgical center by walking past, 14 other parked cars when they should be parking as close as possible because they in fact are the customer. So employees currently are doing that, but I don't know that there's a strict enforcement way of making sure that happens.
I agree. I mean, we see it in downtown Arlington.
Yes.
All the time, but the difference is that that's not policed by your center, or the center that your client is in is not policed by the police for parking. So I'm just bringing it up because hopefully everybody can work together and make sure that there's plenty of space for the customers, because that's why everyone's there. They're all in business.
Right, and I think this kind of condition for number one kind of puts all of them on notice that they have a vested interest to make this work and to continue looking for a solution that's permanent.
Agreed. Thank you, Mayor. I have no other questions.
Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. First of all, I'll say I am supportive of this proposal, but I do have some questions, and some of them Trustee Scaletta did ask about, because I found this a little bit confusing too. One of the things I was wondering about is this. So there's the condos are condos, but there's a property owner underlying it all.
There's an HOA, there's not a property owner for the whole thing. There's a homeowner association, much
Yeah.
like homes. So each of them have an interest in the association.
So they each own a part of the parking lot? Is that how it works?
Their strict,
Not familiar with this
their
kind of
strict
stuff, so-
bylaws do not dictate a percentage owner of the parking lot. And they don't have X number of spaces, is that they all have equal use of it,
Okay, so I guess,
like a common area.
oh, okay. So how does, I don't know if you'd know this because you're really representing your client as opposed to the HOA, but how would the allotted amount of parking be communicated to an owner? And I guess also backing up for a moment, are all the condos owner occupied or leased? And again, I don't know that you would know that, but
Yeah, I don't know that.
If I could,
Yeah,
Trustee
please.
LaBedz, I think the way to look at this is, and again, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if, let's just say that, our rules say that, owner X, has to provide, or there has to be 15 spaces for that business based on ratios. But on a given day, there's 25 of their clients parking in that parking lot. That's not a problem for anybody. The ratios are there to really make sure that there's enough parking and that we're not over parking it. But how many people come on a given day or a given hour, that's not something that's going to be, that's not something that we could enforce. But we're really trying to manage the overall system to make sure that within reason, with reasonable assumptions, the center's not going to be overparked.
okay, because that was kind of confusing to me
Sure.
in terms of how, an individual business would want to be sure. And I completely understand having, going to one of the businesses there myself, sometimes if I'm there are more patients than there are at other times. So the parking demands do vary, and all the parking studies we've ever seen have variations hour by hour. So that sort of thing. So it sounds like, and I'm happy to hear that the HOA is exploring a way to correct this or change it in perpetuity beyond just the agreement with Sun Shui. So
Yes.
that's a good thing.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Trustee Tinaglia.
Right. Really, really quickly, the big difference here, residential versus commercial, is when you have a homeowners association and you have a condo, you might be given 2 stalls in the parking garage. Here, it's a calculation based on how many square feet you have and the use that you're using. And it's a zoning ordinance that we put in place that says, well, if it's office space, it's one parking stall for every 300 or 200, what is the number?
General office, 1 per 300.
One for every
medical,
300.
1 per 200.
And if it's medical, then it goes up. It's one for every 200 square feet. So nobody knows for sure if those are the real numbers that you need to have for any, and every practice might be slightly different. So whether your space is 5,000 square feet and you have one for 300, so you have to have 15 stalls there for your space or whatever, it's a guess. It's everybody's best guess, but that's our ordinance. And that's why we're here today, to get a variance on that, so long as it doesn't negatively impact the other people in that homeowners association, that other parking lot, the owners, the customers, so on. My question, Charles, was this originally built and designed as a quasi-medical general office building, or was it always just supposed to be regular general business?
The parking was built as at the general office parking requirement, not medical office.
Not medical.
Correct.
So how much medical is in there right now?
I mean, there was the surgical center that has the largest space that was approved through the land use variation process in 2013. This petitioner, Impressive Smiles, and then you've got a dental office. There's a foot podiatry. There's a. I think that most of them are medical. There's a couple of non-medical uses.
So it just has kind of evolved this way, huh?
Yeah. So I mean, medical uses. A lot of medical uses are exempt from getting a business license. So under state law. The way, in this particular situation, they came in for a building permit to build out the space, and when that permit was reviewed, that's when, the parking was analyzed, and that's when the flag was raised on the parking situation here. But if somebody, moves, doesn't need to do any
They don't
improvements,
need a permit,
then
they're
they
not
don't need a
changing
business
walls.
license. We may not know about
Wouldn't
it.
know, right.
And that's kind of the problem.
So there's a building on Arlington Heights Road that I'm familiar with that has this exact same situation. And it was overbuilt with medical. And then there was not enough parking. And it became a real problem for the neighborhood because it's in a residential area. You don't have that situation here. You're not overflowing into a residential area. What they did to solve it was they had a shuttle from another parking lot, not too far away, but it was a parking lot that was mostly unused, and so the employees every day would go and park over there, and then the little bus would take them to their job 5 minutes before starting time every day, and it solved the problem. And it was one of those things that I'm suggesting to you, to your client, who, however this works, that if it becomes an issue, that's a good way to help solve it. Your parking lot doesn't have to be adjacent to your property, in my opinion, as long as you can make arrangements to get it accomplished. So that's really all I had here. I'm good with this as it is. I think that what you said to me that's most impactful is the fact that the expansion is not necessarily going to bring in more traffic, more parking, more people. It's really to accommodate the need of the practice and the need of the logistics within that practice to keep it status quo. Did I say that correctly?
Sure.
Actually, there's probably going to be some expansion, some increase, but I think it's going to be minimal and less than office use.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, move on then in the agenda to our second and, well, they're separate items, but we do have a team from District 25 here. And welcome to our District 25 School Board and all their team here. And so thank you for all the great work that District 25 does on a daily basis to educate our children. So who do we have here?
I am Ryan Schultz, the Director of Facilities Management for Arlington Heights School District 25.
Okay, Ryan, why don't you take it away?
Good evening. I'm Ryan Schultz, Director of Facilities Management. First, I'd like to introduce our school board president, Dr. Anisha Jogi, and Dr. Lori Bine, our superintendent, along with several of our members from our design team. Tonight I'll be going over two of our projects. The first one I'll be going over is Westgate Elementary School, an expansion that is primarily driven by the full-day kindergarten program. So the first slide here kind of just goes over our guiding principles that went through the process of getting to our referendum and what our board decisions were on guiding that process. Really, the full-day kindergarten program is guided by these founding principles to guide well-rounded students, the teaching benefits that are involved, advantages to families, and the enhancement to the overall community based on the full-day kindergarten program. So again, these were the guiding principles that led to our referendum that went to the community earlier last year, that successfully passed. Now we're at the point where we need expansions to support that full-day kindergarten program. So again, why is a Westgate addition required? The primary driver, again, is full-day kindergarten, because right now in the half-day model, the rooms are only used in the AM and PM, so we can get efficiency that way by having a shared classroom in the AM and PM. By having it full day, we have to have essentially double. It's not an exact science, but there is essentially double the amount of classrooms that you do need to use for a full-day kindergarten program then. So we're looking to do that in our calculation. Another portion here at Westgate in particular this supports a full district program called Integrated Services. These are students with special needs that have to go to a certain classroom for a portion of the day and then flex into a general education classroom for other portions of the day. So there's a bigger need for classroom space at this facility than what we would call typical across the district. We do see a slight enrollment increase at Westgate Elementary School, primarily driven by home turnover and neighborhood move over in and out. And then also the downtown area is fed by Westgate as well. So primarily, if there's a development that'll be done in the downtown area, a number of these students would flow into the Westgate enrollment area. Again, this is put together by our demographer, taking into account a number of these things. As I noted, this school does host a integrated services program that we continue to support at this school, and that's why the building will be the largest addition of ours at the district. So again, it's to support the existing enrollment, the kindergarten enrollment, the IS enrollment, and projected future enrollment growth. And the final portion that this school needs is a gym expansion in order to support 2 PE sections at one time. So at first we were looking to expand the gym. We've looked at that further, and we're looking to propose to build a new gymnasium of larger size that is similar to some of our past projects at Windsor, Ivy, and Olive Elementary schools. This is kind of where we're at in the approval process through the village. We've had our community meetings, our neighborhood meeting, conceptual design review, design commission, and plan commission. So tonight we're here to present to the village trustees over the portion of the project. And again, we're looking to start these construction projects in late spring, early summer of 2023 for a number of these projects. This is a summary of the requested actions that we're going through, the variances and the amendment to the special use permits. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but they will be here for reference if we need to reference them throughout the presentation. I wanted to go over the site plan a little bit and reference the variation requests to give you a little bit more familiarity on the site. Again, this is the Westgate site. It's on the corner of Dwyer and Grove in Arlington Heights. So we're looking to add the addition on the southwest corner. It's highlighted by a red box on this plan. So on the southwest portion of the existing building is where the addition will be going. I will be starting from the top of the page, though, to go through the variations. We're proposing to add some new trees in the parking lot areas that currently don't have any. There's a variation request to allow for a little bit larger playground area on the east side of the site. That is considered the side yard for this site, considering the north side is the front yard. So right now, we're not allowed to have the playground in the side yard from the current ordinance. But we're looking to replace that playground with a similar size. Again, this is a small playground structure that's primarily there for kindergarten students. The ordinance limits that to 300 square feet. We're looking to up that to 850 square feet just to allow some flexibility in design at this point. We don't anticipate it going up to that or above that number. Also want to point out the new parking lot. Again, looking to reconfigure that parking lot slightly. And the primary driver of that is to improve traffic flow through that parking lot and also add additional parking spaces to that lot. So if you notice, the north parking lot entrance will be closed off for vehicular traffic throughout the day, And what that'll do is force all cars to come in the southern entrance and queue up through the lot. So again, by closing that entrance, it'll allow more cars to queue up and wait. So it brings more cars off the street and allows them to wait in our parking lot and brings them off the street. We're also looking to add some parking spaces by the reconfiguration. So it'll add a net of approximately 6 parking spaces to that lot. Beyond the parking portion, there is a variation request for the height. Currently, the gym is going to be 27 feet tall, and that'll exceed the village ordinance of 25 feet. So we think that's a reasonable request based on the need for clear heights within the gymnasium for sporting events. So we're requesting a variance on that portion. We're also requesting a variance to omit some landscaping on the existing southern parking lot, primarily along the western edge of that parking lot where the green bar is. Our request for that is to allow us some area for snow removal so we don't pile up all our snow into that parking lot. And the distance from the homeowners is a significant amount of distance, and there's no parking cars along that way, so we don't believe headlights will be a continued issue along that location. I also wanted to point out the stormwater location where the underground stormwater detention basin will be going. Again, this is buried underground, so it'll be a flush area, so we'll be planting turf grass over the top so it's usable. That's highlighted by the light blue box. And another variation request for the southern parking lot is to omit landscape islands and some of the required landscaping in there, again, to provide adequate parking spaces. The thing we are proposing to put in that location is permeable pavers to help out with stormwater remediation for the site. As in addition to the eastern parking lot, we're also looking to put some permeable pavers in that location as well. So that's a general summary of the variations that we're requesting for the Westgate site. A brief overview of the floor plan, again, pointing out the orientation has changed now. The north is to the right side of the page. The addition will have a net increase of 10 classrooms, in addition to the new gym and some shared or some restroom areas. So there'll be a variation of areas that'll be used within the addition, but again, a net increase of 10 classrooms. The existing gymnasium will be repurposed into 3 new classrooms, so we'll transform the gym into 3 classroom spaces, in addition to the new classrooms that are shown in a light orange color. Again, the main gym is shown in the yellow, and the existing playground system that we have in place and structure is intended to remain. Here's a rendering of the site looking from the southwest, looking back up towards the gym. So again, the gym is in the forefront there of the picture, the higher portion. To the left is where we'll be renovating and adding some classrooms where the stone cap coping kind of cuts across the whole height of the building, the elevation, and then some newer classrooms again on the southern edge, which is the right side of the page, as well, carrying on the stonework and the masonry from the existing building. Just showing these in general elevations as well. The only request that's been made through the design commission was the chiller screen wall was currently shown as a lighter sand tone type color, and they requested that to be a dark bronze. So we agreed that we would accommodate that with the design of the building. Going into enrollment, just wanted to show a little bit how we got to the point where we are for classroom needs. The number of students currently is around 600 students at the facility, again, taking into account K through 5th grade, and again, that accommodates the integrated students, services students. In that number, we have an anticipated enrollment up to 661 by the 26-27 school year, and again, that's primarily driven by a little bit of enrollment growth, but we also see that we'll have an increase of kindergarten students because we're going to the full-day model. Currently, our enrollment in kindergarten is slightly lower than 1st grade because we believe students are going elsewhere in the community to get services or being homeschooled or some of those things. Our largest increase is in 1st grade enrollment when those students can get full-day services. So that's another portion of the enrollment bump that will be coming most likely due to the full-day kindergarten enrollment. The number of staff at the facility, we currently have 95. We anticipate that to go up slightly again to accommodate the additional kindergarten classrooms and some of the services that are provided at this facility. And the bar chart at the right gives our indication of where we believe classroom counts are needed. Again, this facility is 100% used right now. There are no open classrooms for anything else. So there's all being used for K through 5 right now, or the integrated services program. We have other things at the school that we like to use those spaces for, so we're looking to give ourselves a buffer into the future, primarily for services needs. It will give us enrollment space if needed, but primarily to give us space for other support services at the facility. So currently we have 34 classrooms at this facility. We're looking to go up to 44. And as you can see, that's slightly above what we project the enrollment of sections to be over the next several years. So that's giving us that buffer for those services that are supported at Westgate. Going over to traffic and parking, that's a major thing with our schools that we like to address and talk about throughout this process. We did a traffic study through our professional engineer with aerial footage that I'll get into. We did talk to village engineering staff and get the review as well through the traffic portion. And the Arlington Heights Police also commented throughout this process as well. They do not believe that this project will cause an excessive amount of traffic concerns related to the addition. Going over parking, we currently have 120 parking spaces we will have on site as a result of the final project. We are being required to have 111 spaces. Again, that's based on the ordinance for the school setup. And that, again, is accommodating the 6 extra spaces that we are getting on the site. We have 2 buses at this site that are primarily staged at the northern end of the site at the end of the day, and 8 taxis. And taxis are, again, service students because they may be further away from the school, or they have special needs, or they have to have individual services to get to the site. So this just gives an overview of the parking requirements, again, that we will have based on our traffic study and what the village ordinance requires. I want to go over, again, this is at 2 times speed. This is the arrival. This was done in September with the drone footage, just showing the general view. This is looking back towards the main entrance of the facility. We're sitting at roughly the intersection of Dwyer and Grove, pointing to the southwest over the school. So you can see here in the forefront, the main drop-off area is used extensively by parents dropping off their students. There's a number of pedestrian traffic crossing here at the Dwyer and Grove intersection. And if you look to the back of the site, you'll also see cars going in our secondary parking lot and being dropped off in that lot as well. So again, the time started around 8:50, and you can see here shortly that by 9:05 or so, that is all cleared. So it's starting to loop. So again, we started the footage at about 8:50, and by about 9:05, we anticipate that the majority of the traffic on that site is cleared. Again, this is 2 times speed, just for reference. Wanted to also go over the departure traffic. Again, a little bit going on here with the traffic video and the screen. I just want to point out that on the map, we're just showing where the primary staging areas are for after-school pickup. In the red, that's where we see the heavy lineup of parents along Dwyer and in the back parking lot and our front parking lot. And there's some occasional parking on some surface streets around the school as well, where parents are queuing up to pick up their students because they may have to go a certain way after school or they live in that general direction. Again, this was done in September just to kind of show the traffic flow through the parking lot on its current status. That entrance where cars are entering right now is the north entrance to that parking lot that we're proposing to close, again, to allow cars to go southern more on that street and queue up through our parking lot. Again, the video just restarted, so you can see cars here at about 3:30 are stacked up pretty heavily there in front of the school, in our drop-off area and down the street. And the final video that I'd like to show is a little bit surface level. Again, this is 2 times, so it's no speeding. This is going up Dwyer, up towards the school. And you can see this was done maybe 2 weeks ago on a colder day, just to show how cars are stacked up, coming up now towards the main parking lot entrance and heading up towards Grove. Once the car turns here to the left, that will be onto Grove. I apologize. We go north here first just to show traffic there, and then we come back onto Grove. Again, heading westbound on Grove, you can see some of the cars queuing up to the east of the school, heading past the school now just to kind of show a little bit of traffic. And then a little ways west of the school, there's several cars, but again, there's only a few, and that traffic kind of dissipates relatively quickly. To show the stacking, the current stacking is on the left. That shows the current amount of vehicles that can stack on the site, approximately 35. Again, that's there is some street stacking right now that does occur, that's incorporated into that. We believe by going over to the new, I call it the snake plan, through the parking lot where we bring cars in through the south, we'll be able to have 53 cars parking or stacking into the lot. And this is similar to what we did at Olive Mary's in 2016. We did the kind of the same setup and layout at Olive to remove some cars away from Arlington Heights Road. We did this kind of entrance, and it really pulls cars further away and into our lot and onto our site. Also, just wanted to show this from an aerial view. Again, the green line is showing how cars will propose to come through the lot. The red is showing that where the parking lot will be closed off, and again, that'll be for emergency access only. Police, fire, and that can access that way if they need to. And then a photo showing Olive Mary Stitt, kind of the similar setup, where the one entrance was closed, and you can see it's a concrete pedestrian way. And then the other entrance is the main inward and outward exit of the parking lot on the left side of that picture. And finally, I would like to discuss stormwater. That's another major concern on our sites. Currently, stormwater from our site is tributary to the Wilkie-Kirchhoff Basin, primarily where the Park District's golf driving range is. So all of our stormwater goes to that site currently. We were permitted originally in 1977, I believe was the date, to have our water flow to that site and be stored there and there. We have been talking with village staff and engineering, and they don't feel that there's adequate space left in that facility, and we're not permitted for any more to accommodate that. So we're looking to put an underground storm trap system on our site to accommodate some existing stormwater that we have on our site around the playground area, also to accommodate the parking lots that we look to replace, in addition to the requirements that are needed for the school addition. So again, the storm trap system is a significant investment for the school district, and it will really help in the neighborhood. So we look to put that on site. We did a similar one on Windsor Elementary School several years ago to save some soccer spaces for the community and our school. So underground storm trap system has been worked with through engineering and calculated to accommodate the stormwater for our site. And finally, sustainability. It's a big driver for a lot of our projects in our schools. LED lighting we're looking to implement, high efficiency HVAC, low flow plumbing fixtures, sections of permeable pavers. We have several acres of green space, adequate bike storage, and we see very good ridership. And then we're looking in the future to possibly explore solar panels and PV on this school, in addition to looking at it a little bit further out throughout the district. So that's another exploration option that we're looking to do for the district. With that, I'm open to any questions after Charles ends any comments.
All right, thank you. Very impressive presentation. I like the videos.
Thanks, appreciate it.
So, Charles.
Thank you. Don't have a lot to add, but I'd like to just touch on three items. The first is land use. There is one small change we're recommending to change the comprehensive plan on the south portion of the property from single family to schools, consistent with the remainder of the property. This little piece is not likely to develop as single family, so that's just kind of a cleanup. Second, I'd like to talk a little bit about the landscape variation requests and the rationale for staff support on this. As you know, staff doesn't normally support landscape variations, but I do want to explain what the school is doing and how they're compensating for these variations. So on the top left, you'll see the northwest parking lot. Currently, there is no landscaping in the islands or perimeter landscaping. They are proposing to install perimeter landscaping along the street, 2 trees in this island and 2 trees in this island. The code requires landscape medians to break up rows of 20 parking spaces or more. There are 23 in this row, so they're very close. They're also preserving a lot of other trees on the property, so we felt that was a reasonable variation request, especially as they're upgrading the remainder of that property, that parking area. This parking lot that Mr. Schultz explained is being redone right now. Again, there's no landscaping in that parking lot. They will be providing perimeter landscaping along the street frontage. They'll be providing 2 shade trees along that frontage, and then 4 shade trees in this island here, where 2 are required. So they're kind of overcompensating for the other variation. In this parking lot on the south, the existing lot, this is the area of the permeable pavers. It's really not practical to put landscape islands and the permeable pavers in that area. Technically, they need a variation for this landscape island, but in reality this whole area is significantly wider than you'd normally see and has a large hedgerow along there that's being maintained. And then there's 2 islands that are normally required at the end of this parking lot and a hedgerow to screen from the residential. It probably doesn't make sense to put a hedgerow here where everybody's parking here. Anyone who's coached any soccer teams or soccer practices, which I did in years past, everybody parks in the lot and then just walks to the field. So to put a hedgerow to prevent them from getting there doesn't make sense. If anything, the screening really should occur adjacent to the residential homes. Some of those homes have fences, some don't. They like the open space. Some have added fences to enclose it. So staff supported these variations. They're preserving a whole row of trees along the south side of the property, and we felt they were reasonable requests. And then lastly, the recommendation, we have added a number of recommendations. One deals with if the enrollment exceeds the initial projection of 661. That's the number that's been evaluated in the traffic study, but it could accommodate further, as Mr. Schultz explained. So there's a condition here to have the school work with the village in addressing any pick-up and drop-off issues or parking issues that may be as a result of an increase beyond that 661 if we ever were to get there, and to address those issues, and that can be handled administratively. If we couldn't come to agreement, then it would trigger an amendment to the special use. And then the second most significant condition here is number 2, that the school continue to work with the village to address any ongoing drop-off and pick-up concerns, and they do that on all of the schools, and we're sure that they will continue to do that. So with that, staff recommended approval, and the Plan Commission also recommended approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Perkins. We'll go to the board then for questions and comments. My only question, I'm just curious what the capacity of Westgate School is. I know you're looking at 661 potentially, but what would be the capacity based on current student-teacher ratios?
Yes, I believe we provided that. I don't remember it off my head, but it is up to like 700 or 900 students that it could go up to. We don't anticipate that just based at this site particularly, based on the integrated services program, on the lower student-to-staff ratio that this site has. So we believe that the 661 is a very good anticipation of what this building can support going forward. But again, yes, code compliance-wise in that this building could go up to 900. We don't have any elementary schools of that size. That would be getting up into a middle school type size. We don't think we'd even administratively be able to support a building of that size. So the intent is not to let enrollment get that size, and we don't see that the neighboring community that it currently services would be able to support that either, or we would ever get that amount of students coming from the enrollment district.
Okay, thanks. Questions from the board? Trustee Bertucci.
Just real quick, do you agree with all the conditions set forth here?
Yes, we do.
You do. Okay. Your presentation was very good, thorough, and comprehensive, as was the staff's, and it's great to see that there must have been a lot of collaboration and that everybody's on the same page, petitioner, staff, the commission. So when the time is ready, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Trustee Grasse.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. I really appreciated the presentation. As someone who lived Westgate drop-off, I am really impressed with the revised stacking possibility. That looks like something that will be very beneficial to all in the neighborhood. I really appreciated the plans and everything. I really am grateful to see the use of permeable pavers. I had one question. I understand the omission of the landscape and the southern end, I think it is, of the parking lot for snow use, but is that something where for aesthetics we could even do something like native plants, perennials, something to still provide something there, or that snow wouldn't affect, or is it best to have nothing there?
Again, it's just more for our removal operations. That lot isn't very large. In order to get snow out of the lot and have a place to pile it, it would be beneficial that we would not put anything there. Again, we could, like as Charles was saying, we could look at putting something further away, and then it would be getting out into the field area. So there's things we can look at there, but that western edge is just a little difficult just based on the tight confines of that lot.
And I know that one well. I used to park there quite often too. But just from an aesthetic perspective for even the homes that are across the street. But
if you're talking about the homes across Dwyer, we are looking to screen that side of the parking lot, and then the current southern edge of the parking lot has a very large growth already, so there is a large hedgerow on the southern edge currently. So there's large screening on the southern edge of that property already, so you can't really see that lot from a southern property currently. And again, we are looking to put some screening along the eastern edge of that parking lot.
that would help
by the
the residential homes across the street from the parking lot.
Correct.
Good. That's what I was wondering about. So perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else? Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I will say that the drone video was a little stomach flip-flopping for me because I don't do roller coasters or
windy that
anything.
day, yes.
But it was very insightful. So thank you. Really, I just have a question. How many students? You have 2 buses, right? Correct, at this site?
Yes.
How many students ride the bus? You know?
Do you recall that out of your study, how many are on there? Again, the majority are walking. They're within a mile and a half. They don't have to
Right.
cross a hazard. These will be neighborhood kids that would be serviced there. And again, the other portion is, like I said, the taxis. Because again, if students need support from outside of the Westgate community, if they're coming from farther away, they would take a taxi in
Sure.
if they can't have transportation.
Of course.
Steve Corcoran, our traffic engineer, may have that number of the actual ridership.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I do know that, certainly initially the model in District 25 was neighborhood schools and there was no busing. And being a former Olive parent who was at just the cusp of the mile and a half and having to cross Euclid and Arlington Heights Road was among the group to lobby for busing just because of the dangerousness of the walk. Westgate, I think, seems to be a little
He said he
safer.
doesn't have it in his report,
Okay,
but we could
all right.
provide you that if you have more questions.
That's okay. I was just curious about that. So because certainly the more students that are able to be bused, a little less pressure there is on the cars. It's tough. Okay, thank you very much.
Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I was happy to hear about all the sustainability elements that you guys have included. I have a couple of questions for Charles. Charles, with regard to the engineering, did we outsource the review or was that done in-house?
For the stormwater detention review on engineering, that was done in-house, yes.
Okay. Confident that what they're proposing is going to be able to take care of all the stormwater runoff that they could possibly?
Yeah, they'll meet our requirement, and they also have to submit for MWRD permit approval as well. So there is a condition that they provide those final detention calculations.
Okay.
But it has been reviewed on probably 3 different occasions, and also some preliminary meetings early on as well.
I mean, the expansion is much bigger than I ever imagined. I mean, how many kindergarten classes do you have right now?
We currently have, I believe, that's right. We're going to be up to 5 or 6 kindergarten classrooms. So again, the primary driver here, again, the thing that comes into play here that doesn't really get shown that well is that we're at 100% capacity. That's not normal for any of our schools. So we're trying to build some of that capacity back in through this addition. And that's the primary thing that's coming into play here that's not shown as a root number, is that we're full right now. So again, the full day kindergarten will come up. I believe we're going to be using 6 or 7 classrooms once we include our integrated services portion, and then the remainder of the sections will shake out across those remaining classrooms. So we're looking to give ourselves some extra buffer space. I believe that's 4 or 5 extra classrooms for services, and then we're down to the 39 or so classrooms that we'll be using for K through 5.
And how long has IS been at Westgate?
Oh, it's been...
Oh, because, well, I don't want to get off on some long tangent, but I remember when Block 425 was being proposed that there was plenty of space at Westgate to absorb these kids, and some that we weren't even using all the classrooms, so something's changed.
Yeah, I don't remember what the estimate was on how many students we get from Block 425.
I'm sorry, if you could use the mic, 'cause people on TV won't be able to hear you.
Yeah, I don't remember the study of how many students they thought we'd get from that building, but we are, when he says 100%, we're using the teacher's lounge for classes. We're using some storage areas for small group learning places. So we really have no empty room at Westgate at this point. We can add, we might have a classroom that has 20 students in it, and if we're getting 3 more at that grade level, we might be able to have 23 in that classroom. So we might be able to fit, if it was a small number of students coming from that building area, we have small class sizes, so small numbers of students per teacher, which is one of the reasons this is such a destination district for families to move into. So we might have had space within a classroom to add some students, but we don't have physical classrooms to add the additional number of classrooms we need to double full-day kindergarten, et cetera.
Okay. When you're coming out of that Snake Drive, as we'll call it, is that right in, right out?
It will be, yes, it will be right out and right in, yes.
Okay, great. Because I'm looking at some of the drawings and it's really not clear. And I was just kind of concerned about people traversing the sidewalks. And then with the parking lot that's to the south end of the property, obviously there'll be guards there to make sure that somebody's not going past there if there's vehicles coming in and out?
You're talking about cars coming in to queue up there?
The south lot?
Yeah. It's currently not used for any traffic pickup or drop off, and we don't anticipate it to be that. Again, we'll work on that administratively wise if we need to staff that lot or block it off or how that would need to be, but we don't see that right now, but we would obviously review that to make sure nobody's coming in that lot.
Currently, it's staff parking.
Right, but at some point they want to leave too, right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Hopefully long
Hopefully
after
later.
the students are gone.
I would hope. I've been at Dryden and it seems a little different, but so the just a couple of questions with regard to the landscaping. The bushes, it's kind of hard to look at these plans and there's like kind of like these little oblong circles that show that. How far back will these bushes be? And is there enough space so that people can see through? I mean, what's the height going to be? I'm just kind of concerned. Like, I'm thinking like safety. If you have a row of hedges, and
I mean that in this main lot in the front entrance. This is
no, I'm talking about it back here by the secondary parking lot that they're adding
on the south.
That one, yeah. See in the back how you have that circle.
This area.
Yes.
Here? Yeah, that's the area that there's a requirement for a 6-foot landscape screen between parking and residential.
Right.
So there's single family further away across the field. That's one of the variations that they're requesting and that staff are supporting.
Oh, I thought you were suggesting that it was going to be there. Okay.
No, and it's the requirement is to screen the lot from the homes, but it's so far away across the field, and they've got all that green space and they've got other landscaping elsewhere on the site. That's why we recommended approval of that.
I agree, but I also think from a safety standpoint that it's best that there is nothing there, so that if people were picking up their kids and they're parking in this lot or just anything
and not blocking the playing fields and things like that. Right. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And then the trees in the front. This is earlier tonight we heard about dying trees and these landscape islands, and that's not the first time we've heard it this year. Does your landscape architect believe that you're going to be able to fit 4 trees inside that landscape island on the front, and that they're all going to live?
Yeah, we have to care for them, right? That's part of it, is that we have to care for them probably for 3 years until they establish. That's part of the portion that we have to maintain is the maintenance of it to get them established.
All right. From somebody who has to take care of trees, I would say it's going to take longer than 3 years, but just want to make sure that we're not putting an onus on you guys to put in too much landscaping that only dies.
That's a significantly large island, and most parking lot islands as well, Trustee Scaletta.
Okay. All right, those are all the questions I have at this time.
Anything else from the board? Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. Charles, one question is you say here that if that demand for the drop-off and pickup changes over time, that we can make some modifications?
Correct, yes.
I guess my one comment, living in this town for as long as I have, 34 years, I certainly try and stay away from not only District 25 schools, but our high schools during times when students are coming and going or being dropped off or picked up. I very rarely go by Westgate during those times because I know the chaos around the school. Dryden, which we're going to talk about a little later, I can't help but go past there because I live in the neighborhood. But I guess my question is, just looking at your presentation, which I certainly appreciate, Mr. Schultz, it was detailed and well done. When you look at this traffic flow and traffic studies, you had indicated that it was done in September, right when school started. Weather's really nice. As I drive around the other school, which we're going to talk about a little later, the streets I think are a little bit different, but we never seem to look at it when it's pouring rain or, a foot and a half of snow out there. I mean, can we look at that study during those miserable times when very few kids are walking home or walking to school?
Yeah, and that's why I tried to do that one on the street view. That was more colder weather. We didn't have any snow at that point. We were trying to find some time when we could do that. And we understand that if there's a heavy snowfall going on or a rain event, that there may be more parents picking up. I think that the video of the street was a good representation of a cold day, and I think parents are picking up no matter what then. And once we get to a certain temperature, they're kind of picking their students up. So yeah, we were trying to get aerial footage when it was sufficient out to get the drone up and things like that. The traffic study doesn't have any requirements for that, right? There's no thing to validate that. It's subjective, so we don't have a way to subjectively look at that. But we do know that there's a potential that on a heavy snowfall day or rain that there would be more cars queuing up or waiting to pick up their students on those days.
Yeah, and that's a concern of mine is not the fact that it's the number of cars that are out there, because, having been a parent at Dryden and South and knowing that the kids were being dropped off, it's more so just the safety of
slippery
the kids. That's what I'm really concerned about, where if something does happen, we can change it, Charles, and put some things in place to maybe help that situation.
And that's why we added the two conditions, 1 and 2, to allow that to happen over time.
Yeah, it would be nice to run studies in those colder weathers instead of when the sun is shining. And kids, in the video, we saw a lot of kids walking to school and walking home, and it'd be nice to see it when they're not, because it's pouring rain out or it's the dead of winter, and you've got most parents taking their kids to school and picking them up. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Trustee Baldino.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for your presentation. It was refreshingly well done. Charles, you said it earlier. Staff is generally not supportive of removing of those parking lot islands. And I have to admit that I was surprised to see that they were, there was a proposed variance to eliminate those. And I heard it said that it's not really feasible to do permeable pavers and the islands. And if I were picking, I'd pick the permeable pavers too, but I just wondered why that is. Is that because you're cutting off the water flow toward the retention basin, or why is that those islands not conducive to permeable pavers?
It's more the fact that to do that, you'd actually have to expand the parking lot further west into the green space. So you'd have the permeable pave area, the same area. You'd have an island on each side, but you'd have to extend the parking lot further to the west to do that. And it's an existing parking lot now, so they're just redoing the existing parking lot. And so when they do that, we're trying to, get upgrades and improvements.
Okay.
So they're trying to work within the existing footprint of the existing parking lot.
I understand. I'm just trying to gain a comfortable understanding of the rationale here, because we hold people's feet to the fire with these parking lot islands all the time.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to ask the question and make sure I understood in my head. And like I said before, I'm more in favor of the pavers than the islands for this particular project. But it's something that we always harp on, and I just wanted it to be clear what the rationale was for eliminating those.
Well, I think, whenever we've got an existing non-conforming situation, which right now all 3 of these parking lots are existing non-conforming, we try to get them, to be more compliant. We don't always get every parking lot to be fully compliant in an existing situation. And, we look at, the benefits and improvements that they're making in other areas as well.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to point out some of the other areas where they're adding more trees in bigger islands to kind of compensate for the ones that they're not providing in that lot.
Okay. That makes more sense to me than what I was getting before, that we're compensating for those in other ways.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Anything else from the board? Anything from the audience on the Westgate expansion? Seeing none, go back to Trustee Bertucci.
I'll move approval of the Westgate expansion as presented.
Melissa Kerr speaking.
Go.
I'll just mention that I think we have so many empty holes in Arlington Heights with the topsoil that's been taken out of it for water management. And if we're not careful, we're going to turn into a swamp.
Okay, thank you. Did you finish making the motion?
I'll read it again.
Okay.
A motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of PC number 22-016, a special use permit to allow a public elementary school on the subject property, an amendment to the comprehensive plan to reclassify the single-family detached portion of the site into the school's classification, and the variations as listed, and conditions being met.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Grasse. Any further questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's one down. Now we'll move on to the
Dryden.
request for expansion of the Dryden School Building located at 722 South Dryden Place. Go ahead, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you very much. Similar to Westgate, this project is primarily driven by the kindergarten expansion. We do not have any other district-wide programs or that at this program or at this site. So looking primarily to focus on the kindergarten expansion portion and then supporting the K through 5 enrollment that we project into the future. Again, our same guiding principles here for the kindergarten program. Again, why is the addition needed? Again, primarily focused on the kindergarten portion. The school also needs a larger gym. This school currently has a combined gym and commons or lunch space. So this is the only school in District 25 that has this type of setup. So we're looking to expand the gym to give them 2 sections of PE and then also give them more of a dedicated space for lunch common space that was typical at all the other elementary schools in District 25. So we're looking to expand the gym at this location, primarily to the south of the existing gymnasium by expanding that gym. And by doing so, we'll have one large open multi-purpose room then essentially for weekend and community use after the project would be completed. We also do project a slight enrollment increase at Dryden over the next several years as well, primarily driven by a jump in the kindergarten number and then a slight first grade through 5th grade enrollment increase at that facility. Again, minimal to negligible amount of increase for that portion of the enrollment. Again, kind of the same timeline that we were following for Westgate. We went through all the community meetings, conceptual design review, design commission, plan commission, and we're here tonight with the Board of Trustees. Again, with the slated construction to start in early summer to late spring. This is a summary of the special use permits and variances that we're requesting for the Dryden site. Again, I'll leave these up for reference if we need to come back to them, and Charles will expand on them during his portion as well. For orientation, this is the Dryden site. The addition is on the southern end. It's in the darker yellow portion. That's primarily the gym expansion and the 4 classroom expansion. The existing asphalt play surface will come further to the south, and then I'm also showing the underground stormwater system in the dark green. Again, Dryden Street is along the right side of the page, and on the further to the north is Rockwell. Up on the north end of the site, we do have a small parking lot that we maintain. There are approximately 8 to 10 parking spots in that, depending on how cars fill that lot. So we're looking to add some new trees in that location because there's none currently existing. Right to the west of that lot is a Park District lot. We do have access to that lot, but we've made the decision since the Park District put in the new pickleball courts that we've turned that space back over to them because they've had higher use of that area for the pickleball courts and tennis courts that were just recently renovated. So we're primarily keeping our vehicles on our side on that north end, and again, that is primarily only staff that will park or even know about that parking lot on the north side of the facility. We're looking for a variation to omit landscape islands in the parking lot, again, due to the small size there in that location, and that the parking lot is kind of tucked behind our facility. We're looking to omit some small portion of landscaping to get there, again, for 2 parking spaces on the north side. We're looking for a variation for the existing facility due to a setback requirement that is in place. So we're looking for a variation on where the building is existingly sitting over the setback requirements. We're also looking for one along the east side where the building slightly exceeds the setback limits on the east side of the facility. And then moving down to number 5, the existing variation on the west side. There's a slight overlap on the west side of the facility as well, where the site sits or the building sits over the setback requirements. And again, then along that west side is primarily tennis courts and park district land along the west side of the facility at that location. We're looking to allow the building to exceed the lot coverage to 40.5%. I believe the requirement at this site for this calculated site is 35%. Again, there's a lot of green space at this site, and we do own some property 6,000 square feet to the south that's not shown here, that's not continuous to our site, that was deeded to us during the development. So we do have additional land in this area as well surrounding our property. So this property again consists of park district property surrounding the site, village property, and school district property surrounding the area. Again, the addition, we're looking to have a variance in the height of the gym by 0.3 feet. That is to continue the elevation of the existing gym and common space. We're not looking to increase or make it higher. We're looking to just continue the elevation, and by doing that, it is higher than the required 25-foot height requirement. We're looking to also add some new trees along the eastern side of the front, and primarily those new trees are in front of the classroom areas. So again, to provide some shading and screening along the windows and provide some aesthetics to the front of the facility. In addition to adding some trees in the parking lot, currently where the 4 trees are shown in the landscape island, there is nothing. It's currently a grass space in the parking lot. So we're looking to improve that area to provide some trees and shading. And then currently along the eastern edge of that parking lot, the long stretch near the sidewalk, we do have some native plantings, and that primarily along the sidewalk that provides some pretty decent screening of the parking lot on that eastern side, eastern front of the parking lot near the sidewalk. So that is existing, and we're anticipating that to remain. We're also looking for again, to omit the landscape islands within the lot to maintain parking spaces, and we believe we have adequate landscaping around the lot, and that we'll be adding some more onto the site, so we believe that that's a reasonable request. We're also seeking a variance to allow the sport court outside of the rear yard and allow that into the side yard. Again, for reference, the Dryden Street is considered the front, so the playground is essentially considered on the side yard. Again, this is primarily driven because we're in a residential zoning requirement, so that would be sufficient in a home or something like that where you would want the play area to be in the back of the house. In our setting, we have adequate space between the neighbors, and the neighboring property to our south is a church and a park. So we believe that allowing this would be sufficient, and it meets kind of the current setup of the facility on how the current layout of the facility sits. The remaining variation that we're requesting is parking, and I'll go into that further. But in summary, we don't have enough parking spaces on site, and we're looking to meet that with our continued licensing agreement with the neighboring church at Southminster Church. We have access to a large number of parking spaces that we've had in place there for a number of years. We've helped them improve that parking lot, so again, that helps us with our parking requirements for the school throughout the year. Again, just showing where the underground stormwater system will be placed. Again, this is an underground system that'll be primarily grass, turf, green space. So we're looking to maintain the green space that we have on site. So you'll not notice it as a community member as you drive up that there's an underground storage facility there on this site. The addition, again, is shown on the southern end of the site with the gym addition and the 4 classrooms. The gym addition, again, is the yellow location, looking to expand that to the south to give the gym expanded space, and then also giving them the dedicated common space towards the stage area in the facility. We're also looking to do a small addition to the office space. It's the yellow smaller area between the 3 classrooms and the gray area. We're looking to improve some flow and security issues that we're having at the facility right now with flow in the front office. So we're looking to expand the front office slightly and put that into the addition. So we'll kind of shift the office into that area, and then also have some storage on the southern end of the facility for PE equipment, recess equipment, and facilities equipment like snow blowers and things like that on the southern end of the facility in the yellow highlighted small storage room. Again, 4 classrooms with the asphalt play space looking to move further to the south, and not on this plan, but more towards the southern end of the property is where the stormwater facility will be going. Also want to point out this parking lot, we did review potentially closing the northern entrance like we have in the other sites. It's not a recommendation to do that at this site due to the number of buses that have to come into this lot. We have 4 buses at this property. So in order for the buses to get into the lot properly and allow that lot to be used for busing, we're not proposing to close off the northern entrance on this site and do the snaking entrance. We're proposing to keep that entrance on the north end open at this time. A rendering of the addition is looking from the southeast, looking up to the northeast. The existing facility is to the right of the screen. The main entrance is the green doors on the far right of that screen. And the new existing facility, we're trying to bring in some of the elements of the existing facility, some modern elements with the bay windows, the box bay windows, and then also our standard limestone and brick that we see throughout the district, and to bring that all together with the new addition. Again, you can see the gym addition in the far back and the newer classrooms here in the glass classroom areas. Again, on the southern end of the facility, that was the 3 doors that we were proposing to do like a sand tone limestone color that the Design Commission proposed doing in a bronze stone, and we're accommodating that throughout the process. Showing the elevations of the facility as well. Again, just a 2D representation of what the facility will look like. The top elevation primarily shows the classrooms with the window sections. The next elevation in the middle of the screen is from the south elevation, showing the storage doors and the higher elevation of the gym. And then the bottom elevation shows the western side of the gym. The lighter white gray area shows the existing gym elevation and how we're carrying over that elevation to support the new gym section that's being added on towards the southern end of the facility. Enrollment and staffing at this facility, again, currently we're at around 478 students. We see that number going up to 526 due to the increase in full-day kindergarten students and a slight increase of K through 5 general enrollment that we see throughout the neighborhood due to our demographer's study on this. Again, primarily driven by housing turnover and some things that came up through COVID. So we're looking at that number for the next 5 years. We do see the staffing to go up slightly at this school, primarily to support the full-day kindergarten program. Bless you, going from 56 to 61. So currently we have in the blue bar 24 classrooms. We're looking to go up to 28 with the addition. And through our enrollment for the next several years, we see the highest amount of classrooms that we're using is 25. So we'll have 3 classrooms potentially open for support services and needs that we will be using at the school for those number of years. Same kind of similar setup for traffic. We did an aerial study, a drone study with our traffic study. I'll go through some of those videos of the Dryden site. We had traffic engineering input from the village, and then also the police thought similarly of this site that the addition will not propose a major increase in traffic or a hazard to the neighborhood as well. For the parking, this chart goes through all of the parking lots that are currently on site. So the north lot currently has 8 parking spots, the south lot has 50, and the church lot highlighted in yellow, that's what we have access to through the parking agreement that we have in place. It will be expiring in 2025. It has an auto renewal agreement in there, and then if we would like to extend it, which we will, we can extend that out as far as we want to. So we have several years left on the agreement. As we get closer, we'll review that further with the church, but it is intended to be renewed into the future. So currently on site, though, not taking that into account, there are 57 total parking spaces when the village ordinance currently requires 67 parking spaces, so we're a net of 10 short per the ordinance. But we believe, again, with the licensed agreement, we have more than adequate parking spaces on the site in the nearby vicinity to support that. And again, at this facility, we have the 4 buses that primarily use the parking lot area to stage in the afternoon and pick up students there along the bus drop-off and pickup lane. And there are no taxis at this facility due to the close proximity to the majority of the households. This is again, the aerial footage of the main parking lot showing the traffic flow in the morning. Again, this is done around the similar time in September of the previous presentation for Westgate. And the pink line kind of shows the stacking ability. Again, that's more typical, the pink line's more typical of the evening pickups in that, where cars can stack. But this is just, again, showing the arrival and how students are getting into the facility. And the time's about 9:04. The school begins at 9:05 a.m. So approximately at this time at 9:05, the streets and that are generally clear of school traffic. In the departure, showing that the school buses do queue up in the southern parking lot. The map on the right shows where we see heavier queuing on the streets. So again, along Dryden Avenue, we do see a significant amount of cars queuing up on the street. And then also up on Rockwell, we see a number of cars queuing up and able to slide down the street as their space opens up on Dryden Avenue. Again, just showing the release at 3:35, students are coming out of the building. Some of the cars are being parked in the parking lot, and then the buses will start leaving here shortly as well. The primarily drop-off and pickup, though, is done on the street for this location due to the buses that we have. So again, 3:43, less than 10 minutes after the school releases, the site is generally clear of vehicle traffic. Again, just a drive-through. This is heading up Dryden Street. You can just quickly see the parking lot on our left there, where some parents are queued up picking up their students. A parent crossing the street here. Then the remainder of the cars are queued up on Dryden Avenue, heading up to the north. And this is the intersection of Dryden and Rockwell. As you can see, there's several cars up to the north waiting for their students in that location. And now we're heading west on Rockwell, and you can see there's kind of sporadic. There seems to be several cars from the neighborhood parked in that location. And as we get to the intersection of Lincoln, the traffic is generally no longer in the neighborhood. For stormwater sustainability, the primary way we're going to accommodate stormwater on this site is by a storm tech system, very similar to the storm trap, but the system is these arch chambers. So it will, again, will accommodate stormwater quantity for the addition, the parking lot requirements, and all other requirements that are currently in place for the village and MWRD. So we're looking to place that in the grass green area, kind of denoted on the drawing. And I try to point out in the field where that would generally be located. So again, we're looking for a flat, flush turf grass area that we'll maintain. So that will be going in on the site as well to accommodate stormwater. In addition, we're also looking to do the same kind of sustainability items at this site, again, for LED lighting, high efficiency HVAC, low flow plumbing fixtures. I apologize, there's no permeable pavers on this site. That was just a carryover. There's several acres of green space. There's adequate bike storage and ridership. And we're also exploring solar panels at this site. We've done a basis of design and kind of an initial study on this site, primarily because the addition is focused on the southern side of the building, so there's a very good exposure for sun, and there's not a lot of trees or anything else blocking it at this point on the southern edge. So this may be one of our first pilots. If we deploy PV in the district, we would be looking to deploy it most likely at Dryden and seeing how it performs, and looking to expand that in the future if it is sufficient. So those are all the items I had for the presentation. I'll look for questions after Charles' portion.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins.
Thank you. Similar to the earlier presentation, that was very thorough, so I will just touch on a couple of items. First, relative to the landscaping, again explaining the situation here. So on the north lot on the left, that's an existing non-conforming lot. It will be improved. They will be adding 2 landscape islands, one at this location at the entrance and one at this location here. They'll be adding 2 trees as well as the required screening between the parking lot and the single-family homes to the north. This is the area where they're requesting a variation from an additional landscape island. This is a walkway that goes to the building and provides access to a utility enclosure and access to the building. So staff is supportive of that variation. If you were to add the island here, then you'd really only get 1 space and probably isn't worth the effort of doing that. On the south parking lot, right now it has a very nice landscape screening along the perimeter, along the streetscape on Dryden. They are proposing a tree in this island and a tree in this island that's required. They're also proposing 4 trees along in this island that separates the parking lot from the circulation drive. They're only required 2 trees in that island, so they're compensating for the variation request. So they're requesting not to install the islands mid-block because they have about 24, 25 spaces in a row, which exceeds the 20 that's required for every island. But they are compensating that with the 2 trees on that particular island. In addition, they're adding 4 trees around the entrance, which are not required, so they're above and beyond what our minimum code is. So because of that, staff supported these small requests, and they're kind of overcompensating in other areas. We did note in the Staff Development Committee report, the backup and parking of traffic on Rockwell. Rockwell's a very narrow street, and that is something that will have to be monitored after the addition and see if that increases or becomes more of a problem. And then have to work with the school district, probably starting with them. If it's a problem, notifying the parents not to pick up or stage at that location. It is a public street, so if it gets to the point that there needs some signage or enforcement, then that would have to be addressed by the village and then monitored by the school district as well. So we have similar conditions for Dryden that we had for Westgate as far as monitoring. If the student enrollment did exceed that 526 that's been evaluated in the traffic study, because the capacity in theory could increase above that. Again, condition 2, that they continue to monitor situations like the Rockwell scenario. And then thirdly, a new condition that was not in the Westgate one, dealing with the Southgate Church. So if that shared parking agreement were to go away at some point in the future, and there were issues with lack of parking or pickup and drop off, then the school district would have to look at ways to address that to the satisfaction of the village. So with those conditions, Staff Development Committee recommended approval and the Plan Commission recommended approval as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Questions? Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Charles, with the pickup in a lot of cases being staged on Rockwell, can you just give us just a little bit of an update? Is there any plan soon of I know you were waiting, I think, on a grant to tear up Rockwell and widen it?
I'm not fully up to speed on if Public Works is pursuing a grant for Rockwell or not. I'd have to research that and report back to the board.
All right, because there were letters that had gone out quite a while ago to all the neighbors, and I think they were starting to take down some trees, and then the project was all put on hold. But if all of a sudden that project gets started again, where they're going to tear up both sides of Rockwell, that's going to impact the drop-off sites.
Well, if Rockwell is improved or repaved or anything like that, then clearly during the construction stage that would impact and preclude any staging or parking along there. If it's widened long term, that might help alleviate the situation. Right. We observed, as a staff, similar to the video, 3 to 5 vehicles. It's not a lot. They seem to be, pulled over to the side, not blocking, traffic. We observed that, two-way traffic was able to pass. But it is narrow streets, so that was why, I mentioned it, and it's mentioned in the report that it would need to be monitored.
Right. So that project is just on hold for the time being?
I'm not aware of that project myself, so I can't speak to that. I know they've been, Public Works has been applying for a grant for stormwater detention facilities in the area, just south of Dryden School, on some property that we own and some property we just kind of swapped with the Park District for that purpose, but I'm not familiar with the Rockwell improvement project.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Trustee Scaletta.
So Charles, same question with this. Engineering department went through and looked at this, their program for mitigating all the water runoff.
Yes, we had a lot of meetings on Dryden relative to stormwater detention. Early on last year, we were talking about the potential for a combined detention for the school district and the village, because there is some flooding in the area further to the west, especially Orchard and Beverly, which is a very low spot in Scarsdale Estates. But the timing did not work out, and that's why the school district's moving forward with their underground stormwater detention trap, which has been reviewed by Public Works and Engineering many times, and they're comfortable with the approach. When we wrote the report, we were still waiting for some final calculations, and those would need to be verified. The village has to sign any application that goes to MWRD for that before they can submit their permit application to MWRD. So, but yes, the approach and the general approach and the volume capacity, would meet our requirements and also meet MWRD.
So everything that's being proposed is not going to increase any kind of flooding problem that exists in the neighborhood?
No, that's how it's been designed to detain on site and would not exacerbate any existing problems. It won't solve any existing problems. It may help a little bit, but it's not going to solve the situation that we have.
And again, if I could, Trustee Scaletta, we are working actively with that land swap that we just underwent with the Park District to address those broader flooding challenges that we have in the neighborhood with that adjacent property. So the two projects are working in parallel. But we're very much looking at the impact of the two on each other, and we're it's good to kind of be looking at these things at the same time, even if they're not implemented exactly in tandem.
So there's a playground right adjacent to the parking lot. Is that the property you're talking about, the land swap?
I believe the piece of property we bought is not improved in any way. It's just a piece of grass currently, and so I don't believe the property we're obtaining is the one with the playground on it.
Okay.
So this in this area, the village owns a parcel down in this area, and then the school district owns a little piece, and then this area generally here is the piece that we just swapped
Correct.
with the Park District.
Okay. So on this aerial, it looks like there's plenty of room between the ball field and the building, but it doesn't show the asphalt. And when you look at the engineering plans, it looks like the edge of the ball field is right up against the asphalt. Is the ballpark going to remain?
We're having conversations with the Park District. We don't know yet. It may get reconfigured at some point where we'd have to come back and talk to them. But again, it's primarily on their property. So we are having conversations that field could be impacted as a result of the construction project.
Okay. So have you thought about configuring your asphalt in a different way so that you're not impacting that ball field?
We've looked at that. It's very difficult in that location just because of where the space that we have available, and then we wouldn't be extending too far into the grass. So we have a number that we're looking to get for square footage on the asphalt space. If we were to extend it over to the east more, we'd just be coming further south into the grass space. We would like to keep it up closer to the building for supervision and administration wise. So that's why we're proposing to put the asphalt where we are.
Okay. And the playground that has all like the wood chips and everything that remains?
Yes, that again is Park District. We have an intergovernmental agreement where in 2007.
Talking about a different playground, I think. Talking about the one behind the building?
Yeah.
That's the Park District?
Yes.
Okay.
So that agreement was put in 2007. There was an intergovernmental agreement where we shared costs in the installation of that playground. So we have joint use to that. The Park District currently owns the land. We are looking and having discussions with them to improve the playground system. But if we do look to go forward with that, if there's any variations with that, it may come through the Park District because they are the owner, the beneficial owner of that land where that playground sits.
So when I'm looking at this yellow square, that's your property?
Yes.
Okay. And don't you think that you should come up with a solution for the playground, for the ballpark before you start digging?
I think that's why we're having the conversations with the Park District, since it's on their property, that we'll have to come up with who will be coming forward with those decisions. At this point, it's not part of our project, so we won't be bringing forward what that solution is until we have further discussions with the Park District on what their thoughts are on the matter.
Okay, well, we all kind of work together, so we have to figure out something. I mean, this ball field is used by students of Dryden.
Not for school use.
Not for school use, but for use.
They may.
They do. So I'm just saying, let's make sure that before you start digging up the ground, that there is some kind of
Yeah, and I think there's a
resolution,
lot of other portions that we need to know as well, is with the stormwater, if that's going to be buried underground, could the baseball field sit in that location? We don't know some of those details yet. I know that the village is still working through that. We're at a time frame where we're trying to meet our requirements for implementing full-day kindergarten. Some of these are still lagging, that some of that information may still be coming forward on where that will have to sit for the long-term solution of that site.
Sure, plus where you may be putting your stormwater, maybe where you have to land bank for additional parking in the event that you don't have an agreement with the church.
And our intent, if I can jump in, we've had many conversations with the Park District. Our intent is to end up with a ball field that they can use in that neighborhood. It may or may not be in that exact location.
But there will be one there.
That is our intent at this point. We're still working through the details, but that is our intent.
Okay, well, I like that answer better. Thank you. I have no other
All
questions.
right, anything further from the board? Just one question. Are you going to be using the same contractor for both Westgate and Dryden?
So that's our construction manager. They will oversee the project in general in a professional level. There may be different contractors on each of the site for each of the trades, but again, we'll be using the same construction manager for all the sites that'll be coming forward that will be managing them. So again, we might have different masonry contractor on a site or a different plumbing contractor depending on how the bids come in. But right now, we will have the same construction manager overseeing the projects.
So you anticipate both the start and the end time to be the same for both expansions?
Generally, yes.
All right, if nothing further from the board, anything, I do have 4 blue cards from the audience, so you guys can have a seat for a second. And you're just reminded again of the 3-minute time limit, and again, I have 4 blue cards. So the first is Ellen Plasek Zimmerman, and then next is Robert Backus. Hi, Ellen.
Hello, President Hayes. Thank you for the opportunity. I am here as a resident and also a grandma who is dropping off and picking up youngsters at Dryden School before and or after school, just about every day, Monday through Friday. I will take huge issue with the way traffic is flowing there on that beautiful, bright September sunny day. That's not typically what's happening. I fear for the children. I have been in contact with the principal. I'll actually be talking with her later on this week for some issues in the here and now. However, we have a fabulous opportunity with this major construction going on to fix, I would hope, a lot of these problems. Southbound, Dryden, it looks like everything's flowing nicely. Not so much. We've got people double parking. We have children walking in between cars. I have observed this on a day that my husband picked up our grandkids. He had youngsters in front of his car going to the middle of the street where these children were getting in their vehicles. And oh, by the way, those drivers were getting out of their cars in order to help these youngsters in those cars. Again, in the middle of the street. It's very, very dangerous, especially as the weather has gotten colder, snow, rain, which, let's face facts, our school year tends to be more of that kind of weather than those beautiful sunny September days. So I would implore you folks to please take another look at the whole drop-off pickup situation at Dryden, whether putting buses in a different location, allowing for a snake, as you've called it. I'm not sure what. As you're dealing with Park District property, are there some things that can happen in that regard? I don't know. All I'm asking is that that be looked at much more diligently than what it has now. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Next is Robert Backus, and then John Elliott.
Hello. I've been a resident in Arlington Heights since 1999, so you can actually see the two roofs of my house there. I'm on Roosevelt. So when we moved in 1999, we never pretty much had any issues with any street flooding. I believe in 2007 is when they did the first expansion at Dryden. And I believe that summer, or it might have been 2008, we had a really bad rainfall. So all of Dryden flooded. It spilled through the yards and landed onto Roosevelt. So we flooded really bad. I have a full sub-basement that was completely filled, and a garden level room, which was flooded a good 2 feet up as well. To this day, even in a bad rainstorm, we still get flooding on our block, and as well as Dryden, just south of Orchard. So that low area fills up all the time. So if you're driving down there, you have to cut through the church parking lot. You could go in one entrance and come out the other. So I'm very concerned with this addition, that there's going to be some more flooding. I just can't see how it could be avoided. Like I said, I've been here now since 1999, and every bad rainfall, our street floods. I'm at the very top of the downslope, and it gets really bad. So I'm concerned about this. Hopefully, you're able to figure out this drainage, because it'll happen again. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Backus. I just know that any new development cannot make the flooding situation worse. And so I know our engineering department has looked at this particular detention situation, and I am confident that they have made sure that the proposed detention for this development will not make the situation worse. Now, that doesn't solve what problem you're currently having, but at least I feel confident that it's not going to make the situation worse. Randy, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. You know, as we said, we're looking right now. One of the reasons why we swapped property with the Park District was to provide some additional regional detention at this location, and so that is something we're very much looking at to hopefully make improvements to the overall drainage situation in this neighborhood. We've seen a significant increase community-wide in kind of extreme stormwater events and flooding, and that's why we've set up the new stormwater fund, and over the last few years we've spent close to about $20 million in doing improvements all over the community. A big percentage of that grant funded. We've been very, very fortunate in the grants we've been able to obtain, and we're still chipping away at that. And this is an area right now, the Scarsdale general area, that we're looking at. And so it is not a back burner item, and hopefully we can provide some relief to some of the residents that live in this vicinity.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
Trustee Scaletta.
Randy, just a quick question. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I've witnessed the flooding on the street that he's speaking of in the exact same spot. There's restrictors in that area, right? That, I mean, the idea is to have the water, not that this makes, you know, anybody in the neighborhood feel better, but the idea is to try and hold the water on the street so that it doesn't end up in homes, right?
Generally speaking, and I didn't want to speak out of turn because I don't know what exactly the situation is on his block, but there are a lot of places in this general vicinity where you have your ditch and culvert, and so you have restrictors, as you say, where you would rather push that water on the street, where it's designed that way for the water when it gets over a certain level to go on the street rather than go on the block. And I can't speak to his particular block, but certainly in this neighborhood that is a phenomenon. And it only is an operational issue for us is if it lasts for, you know, longer than the duration of the storm, or if it's at such a high level that we feel emergency vehicles can't traverse the area. But it is kind of a design feature in some areas. For the most part, when those things are working well, the water will dissipate, within a couple hours of the storm ending.
Okay. And I'm not trying to negate any of your concerns by any means. I'm just pointing out that is one of the things that that Public Works has done over the years with engineering, was to try and slow water from getting into the system so that it wouldn't flood in residents' basements or houses. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Next is John Elliott, and then William Boudreau.
Good evening, John Elliott. I'm a resident at 932 Scarsdale, where it says One Builders at the south end of the detention area. So there's two homes immediately south of the school that the addition will come towards, and I'm one of the two. I'm the one on the left-hand side. So just really quickly to further on the stormwater issue, the area that seems to be the worst that does flood with frequency is right where the school parking lot is, which I believe is currently being used as a detention. Excuse me, a detention. If that's accurate, I'm not sure, but I believe it is. Overground detention?
Yeah, I can't tell you off the top
or
of my head.
retention, I should say.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, but that's about where it correlates to. Charles, would you mind please putting up the site plan? The landscape site plan, if you don't mind, the green space one. While you're bringing that up, a question I have with regard to building coverage. Is the courtyard space being calculated within the building coverage? I would assume maybe not, but from a street level, from an impact at the street, you wouldn't know that the courtyard's there. So the building is perceived to be much larger. I understand, I'm a builder, so I get how the calculations work, but from a street level, it seems like that really should be calculated into the building size because that's what it appears as aesthetically. So I had a question about that.
Well, there's two different calculations. There's a zoning code calculation, so building coverage is just buildings, and then there's the stormwater detention calculation, which is anything that's paved.
Right. No, I understand that, but I'm speaking specific to the building size. I understand that it's probably not calculated, the courtyard space, but in reality, it almost really should be because the envelope of the building is that much larger, and from a street level, it appears to take up much more of the property because when you're looking at the outside of the envelope of the building.
I understand what you're saying.
I would throw that out there as, it's impactful, and now it's going to come 120 feet further towards me. Obviously, that's a concern for me as a resident adjacent to the property. So I throw that out there. The other question I had that was an important one is with regard to parking. Your count seems to be like it's 3 spaces off in the petitioner's count in the existing. I don't have a problem personally with addressing any issues with parking in the future if it becomes a problem. But I would propose that it not be handled at a staff level because you can't get a little pregnant, right? You have a certain amount of students that are going to be enrolled. If you limit the enrollment or say that once it gets to that enrollment, then it has to come back to the board to give approval to then go above that amount because now we have to deal with the parking situation. Where is the parking lot going to go? Where is the additional parking going to go to handle more students, more pickups, drop-offs, parking? And there's only one place I could see that it could go, and it's at the south end of the property, going east to west. So that's a concern that maybe isn't being taken into account in the planning now. So my time's up. I'll give it up.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Elliott. Next and last is William Boudreau.
Well, I had the pleasure of watching both the presentations on Westgate and Dryden twice. I spoke at the Planning Commission, and my big concern is the flooding. And what's interesting is I went in onto the website for Dryden, and there was a history of Dryden. It was built in 1952. It had 352 students. There was an addition made in 1986 in which 6 classrooms were added. Then there was a major addition in 1992-93 where the school was basically doubled. Then in 2007, there was a third addition where they had the 6 classrooms, and they also enlarged the parking lot. And right after that one, that's when all the flooding went east, not just west where Beverly is, but Roosevelt was flooded big time. And I remember being here after that big flood where this place was packed. And it seemed like Westgate had floods every 2 or 3 years every time there's rain. We had never had, I've been here 20 years, and I had never had any flooding on the street. And my neighbors, not only Mr. Backus, but also my other neighbor, they had 7 feet of water, okay? What's interesting is, so you have a school that has more than doubled in size, and prior to 2016, the school district could do whatever it wanted in order to build. They didn't have to come, they didn't have to take into consideration of stormwater. So they built all of these additions without any thought to what the stormwater runoff would be. And they didn't have to take that into consideration. So in 2007, when they did that, they built those 6 classrooms that are graded down to the street. So that water comes off dry and comes across. Now this retention that they're going to put in, that's only going to take care of whatever the new addition is and whatever that stormwater runoff is. But they created the problem over the last, 50 years, and most particularly in light of 2007, yet they're not responsible to take care of that, to take care of the floodwater that they produced back in 2007 or prior, okay? And now you want to give them a variance. They've got 9 nonconformities, including now they want to go up to 40.5% of the acreage. I know you're probably going to approve this, but if you do, you should make them have a much bigger storm retention and tie in all of the drainage that comes down from that addition that they put back in 2007, 2008. So people like Mr. Backus and others on my block and on Dryden don't have 7 feet of water in their sub-basements, and they're going to be coming back and looking back at you people and saying, why did you do this? The school district created the problem by expanding on a small plot of land. They need to correct it, whether they're legally required to or not. They should pay for it. They should correct it so that we don't have this issue coming back 5 years, 3 years, 1 year from now, next time there's a big storm. And when do those storms always occur? 3 o'clock in the morning, because I got a call from Bob saying, check your basement at 3:30. So that's pretty much what I say. Either you deny it or you make them pay to have the additional storm retention system put in and to take care of the problem they created back in 2007.
Thanks, Mr. Boudreau. All right. Trustee Tinaglia.
Quick question for Charles. Queuing on site. Can you briefly, quickly go back to Westgate and tell us how many cars are queued on site for pickup? That red line with what they're referring to as the
with
snake.
the changes, they were talking about getting up to 53 in the queuing, but some of that was on Dwyer and into the site.
I guess I'm more interested in just on site. Once you leave that curb of the street and you go on site, what's the total here? Is it 53? Or is part of that on street?
There's about 16 to 18 on the street, and the remainder are kind of snaking through the parking lot.
The 2 parking lots.
Okay, yeah, so I'm looking at 53 is the total of both the west lot and the east lot, so there's about 18 on street and then 18 in the lot.
As revised.
As revised, yes, correct. So if you look at that far right image, there's 36 in that area, not 53. 53 is the total of both the west lot and the east lot.
And how does this compare to what we just saw for Dryden?
Well, on Dryden, the pickup is 100% on street.
There's no coming through the lot and waiting and all that.
Yeah, you get a few that might park in the parking lot and wait and then leave if there's a space available when they arrive, if they get there early enough. But the majority of it is on street.
Okay.
Yeah, because the buses are in the lane on the site.
Or once the buses leave.
Correct.
Okay, so it seems like it was a this was something that you guys thought about, made a specific decision that it was either going to be handled on site here or ignored. Tell me how you came to the conclusion that this part was not going to be brought on site and it was going to stay on the street.
Yeah, I'll bring Steve Corcoran, our traffic engineer, up to
Okay.
discuss it a little further.
All right. And before you answer it, Olive, the other 25 schools, the other District 25 schools, are any of them like this, or are all of them like this, or what do we have on the other schools?
So, I mean, Windsor has a combination of on-site and street. Olive has on-site and on-street. Patton has on-site and on-street. And then Greenbrier has a lot on-street. I'm not sure how much they have on-site.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Certainly. Yeah, so in terms of just comparing Westgate with Dreyer, excuse me, Westgate has two drop-off areas, basically,
Yeah.
you know, the east to west, so that right there obviously helps make it operate much better. We do, because of the width of this property and length in the Park District property to the west of us, we really don't have the opportunity to create a second drop-off area on the school property. And in the morning, everyone's allowed to come into the lot to do their drop-off. The buses come in, they generally come in early and they're out of there quickly. And then the parents are bringing their kids in and drop off. Some drop off on street still, but it's a much easier, better flow. And then in the afternoon, what happens is the buses, as you can see in this picture, they're parked there at, so when school lets out, they're parked and then the lot is blocked off and limited to buses only. But some parents get there a little early, as you saw in the video, and if there's any empty spaces in that lot, they park in there and then walk, get their children and come back out. And so we're basically ending up with many of the people parked along Dryden, or some people do use that church parking lot for pickup, not as many as I would hope. And that's probably where the school district can try to encourage more people to use the church parking lot for drop-off, to take some of the pressure off there.
Is this parking lot a staff parking lot too? Is that where staff parks?
Yeah, it's mostly staff. There's some, it's some for visitors.
So as I see this,
also.
I'm sorry?
Staff, it's primarily staff, but there are some visitor spaces there.
Right. But as I see this right now, you'll see a dozen or more parking stalls that are open and most of them are filled with cars. Would it be safe to say those are teachers and staff alike in those cars right now and the parents haven't arrived yet, or what?
No, there are definitely some parents in there. If you will replay the video, it'll show when people start leaving, that parents are leaving at that time. That's parents. Again, I don't know how many.
Yeah, when you see, again, when you see all the kids come out of the school, most of those spaces are filled at that time. The empty ones are, yeah.
Well, I gotta say, my thought on this is, it seems like you guys have been doing such good work in so many ways and so many of the other schools to try and avoid what we heard from one of the residents and about, the children running out and between parked cars and parents picking up on the fly in the roadway. I'm wondering, why are we allowing that to happen here? And I'm not here to solve it. I'm here to just try to suggest to you.
Again, me personally, I've been there a lot of times. I've not personally witnessed that double parking. Again, could it happen? Yes.
I don't mean it's like double parked. I mean, I can imagine, a child, there comes my mom. I'm going to go run out and meet them and sneak between these two cars that are waiting in the queue and then mom doesn't have to find a spot in the lot or wherever she was going to go, or he was going to go. It just seems, I can imagine that being the case if it's disorganized. But you guys are so good at organizing this stuff everywhere else. And if I'm hearing it properly, this one needs some help. Maybe I'm not. Maybe it's just a very small fraction. I don't know. But I think Charles said it best earlier, that he's going to keep an eye on this with you guys and make sure that this gets addressed properly. I mean, we can all be committed to that, right?
Yes. There's two
It does
basic.
kind of bother me, I got to
Sorry.
tell you, that we're doing an addition on a project here, and we're kind of ignoring this. We're pretending it doesn't exist. And on other schools, we have this much better circulation pattern there. So if there was time, and if there was ability, I would prefer it to not be this way. I'd prefer it to be not so much on the street.
Mr. Eckloff.
Just one thing I was going to point out, just a distinction between Westgate and Dryden. Westgate has about 600 students, and Dryden has less than 500. And Dryden has 4 buses, and Westgate has 2. So there's a bigger enrollment at Westgate, and there's a smaller proportion that are using buses. And so there is a bit of an offset where you've got more cars coming through Westgate, by a fair amount. And so when we've looked at these sites, I mean, obviously all of these sites, every one of them is a little bit different. The traffic patterns are different and so forth. But we always, I think, Dr. Bynum and I have talked about this many times before, that traffic management at schools is never done. It's something that we're constantly monitoring, tweaking, working with the police department, working with, crossing guards, and working with parents to try to optimize. And it is for sure a challenge.
Okay.
Okay, Trustee Scaletta.
So, from personal knowledge of picking up and dropping off at Dryden, I think the one big problem that they have is, which we had at Windsor, is that you're dropping off children at the curb and it's grass, except for when there's snow, or when it's raining out and it's all muddy. So, that might be a place where you look at putting down some permeable pavers so that it's easier to get people in and out of the car faster. I know that the school district does a lot. I'm not going to say everything they can do, because you can always do more, but they do a lot to try and educate parents on picking up and dropping off. I have witnessed the double park thing. I haven't witnessed the kids in between the cars as much as this parent has, but times change. I haven't been at Dryden for years, but I will say that is the biggest problem that you have along that whole street from Rockwell all the way down. Is, one, it's all grass, and 2, you have some parents that they keep the kid in the car, keep the kid in the car, keep the kid in the car until they get all the way to the entrance of the parking lot, and that's where they let off their child. Different at South, where you pull in and there's a bunch of teachers and they're telling you to keep going, keep going, keep going, and then everybody pulls all the way down, and then all the kids get out, and then all the cars move. I really think that if you guys want to really address the safety of your car line without impacting the safety of your parking lot because of the buses, which is a bigger challenge. You guys have more buses here. We learned that when we had you come forward with the Windsor expansion, is try and come up with some kind of solution from the edge of that first person's house adjacent to the school, and do something all the way along the curb line with permeable pavers, so that in the winter that your groundskeeper can go through there with a snow blower and clear the snow, so that we can get people out of there, and it will become more safe that way. My opinion.
Okay, anything further from the board? Trustee Grasse.
Thank you. I was just asking for maybe a little bit of clarification just as far as the flooding concerns, if I may. I know where I live, there were 4 lots that were sold and only 3 were allowed to be built for a retention pond. That was to help with the bigger homes that were going to be built on those 3 lots. And it was wonderful to see how that retention pond actually eased a lot of the backyard flooding in the bigger community. I didn't expect that to happen. That was wonderful. My question is, will some of this stormwater drainage that's proposed also help with some of the flooding? That's my first question. Is that part of it, or is it only to cover the new building? How is that planned? Or
I can say, I think engineering looked at it just to make sure that they were dealing with their requirements. Could it help the surrounding area? For sure. But that we want to be careful. We're not promising that what's being done at Dryden School, will absolutely help adjacent neighbors. It won't hurt, and it will cover the work that they're doing now. But it absolutely could help, I guess is how I would.
Well, I know that was a wonderful piece that happened within our neighborhood that we weren't expecting. So that's why I was asking. And then, if I may ask another question, where in the priority of the flooding is that area for our village to focus on? I know we were talking about some projects. Is that?
It wasn't. It's something that is being designed currently. It's not one of the pre-chosen areas that was part of the study. And so we're doing an additional study, a supplemental study on this area because it wasn't part of the scope of work of the 2013 study that was done. And so it's something that's being worked on actively. And, we've identified this area for drainage, but drainage is only one part of it because then you have to have the conveyance of getting it from the different parts of the neighborhood. That's what's being worked on now, by engineering department, as part of their stormwater program.
It just, that kind of flooding just is concerning to me for that neighborhood, and I'm hoping that we can look at that also in the future to help with that.
Sure. Trustee Scaletta.
Just a quick question, Charles. When I asked you earlier that if engineering looked at the stormwater, I asked about whether or not that was going to be able to accommodate the property, the building.
Correct.
Are you saying that it's only for the new structure?
It's for the new impervious surface areas and structure.
Okay.
It would not, it might pick up a little bit of some of the existing area, but it's not going to, for example, the existing parking lot on the east along Dryden that we're looking at here, it's not going to pick up, that runoff from that area. So, but what you can see here, this paved area, here that's currently has no stormwater detention.
Right.
That's getting built over,
Right.
and the new paved area that's going south of that will all be accommodated in this stormwater detention vault. So there'll be a little benefit. I don't know that it's going to be enough to address, some of the issues that we're hearing, quite frankly. I mean, it'll be a small improvement, but it's not going to be, noticeable, really.
So 2 questions was, one would be, can they just make that a little bit, can they make it bigger to accommodate the prior expansion? And number 2, can they do some kind of paver system for the proposed, there you go, the proposed basketball court and Foursquare?
So this, if I can get this to work, so the engineering plan, has inlets in kind of this area that comes down into this detention vault. Same for the runoff from this paved area as well as the building will all go into this detention vault, hold the water before it goes out to the main storm sewer on Dryden.
Right, but so since it's connected to that building, couldn't they take some of that water as well off of that building?
Depends where, they'd have to expand the detention area. They may have to expand the conveyance system. It depends where, all the downspouts and inlets are from the existing building.
So what kind of efforts did they make to mitigate the stormwater runoff when they expanded in 2007?
They didn't come through the
Can I
village
speak
for a
to that?
process at that time, so, I don't know what they did at that time.
All right, why don't you introduce yourself if you would?
My name is Josh Kapp. I'm a project manager with Erickson Engineering. We are the civil consultant for the school district. From the record research that I've done, in 2007, when that addition was designed and built, the design engineer was Gewalt Hamilton at the time. That south parking lot was also expanded, and as Mr. Elliott pointed out, detention was accommodated for that addition on the surface of that expanded parking lot. So in 2007, detention was provided for that addition when it was constructed.
In the parking lot?
In the parking lot, correct, on the surface.
So when the parking lot floods, it's supposed to flood?
Yes.
Yes. And everybody still parks there?
Yes. Yeah, the way that it's graded currently, and this is common practice when we do surface detention on parking lots, you want it channelized in the drive aisle. Try to keep it away from, a user's vehicle, keep it out of the walking footpaths of users. So, in this current configuration and with our proposed improvements, we are also proposing to maintain the existing storage on the surface of that lot.
Is there any way of putting it inside this vault?
Certainly you could. That is an additional expense to the school district that we do not look to incur on them as their consultant.
Okay. As a taxpayer paying for it, I would ask you to figure out what the numbers are, and the school district should at least consider it, as it is negatively impacting the neighborhood.
It's not, though. It's being detained on the parking lot surface, and that's how detention is permitted and calculated through the village and through MWRD. So it's a acceptable detention facility, and that's how it's currently detained and designed. It's not flowing into the street any faster. It's a detention facility that happens to store surface water on the parking lot in an extreme event.
Okay. There's a couple people here that said that since there was an expansion on the school, that their basement's flooded.
Yeah, we talked about this during the Plan Commission meeting. We have a staff member that was here for that meeting, the Plan Commission meeting, that recalls that addition, and there were flooding concerns at that point in 2006 and 2007 when the project was being discussed with the village at that point. So our understanding is that there's flooding concerns in the neighborhood for extended periods of time that could extend beyond 2006 and 2007. And again, the school's a part of this, right? The school's a portion of the stormwater.
Sure.
But it's also the expanded homes in the neighborhood, street improvements, overall dynamics of the village that also come into play in this. So it's not just as simple as the school's gotten bigger, so the flooding has been caused by the school.
Okay, but, so you're saying that after the expansion, that all the runoff from that building and the expansion, all of that runoff just goes into the parking lot?
No, a lot of the times when you have situations like this, there are trade areas proposed. We have to demonstrate that what is conveyed either via, storm sewers or overland is equivalent to the development that's occurring. Now, not having been the designer for that 2007 edition, I don't know necessarily the ins and outs, but that is the process that we go through today when we're permitting through both the village and the MWRD.
Charles, I think you should take another look at this with engineering just to make sure that they're doing everything they possibly can to hold as much water on that property in that vault.
Yeah, we can have another conversation with engineering and public works on this.
Okay.
At the same time, though, I think, our charge here today is to look to see what the detention requirements are for this expansion. It'd be very difficult for us to sit here and judge what's causing current flooding there. And I can't say that anything that they did in 2007 is causing flooding in the neighborhood. So I don't know how we can say that. Mr. Rickles.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say that because we're in the midst of this, the situation in this neighborhood is very complex. And I don't think we can say that flooding is due solely to one project. This is largely a ditch and culvert area where, there's not underground sewers. And so we know a big contributor is just simply landscaping. Some people landscape their yards. The ditch gets filled, the water has to go somewhere, it goes into their neighbor's yard. We're seeing that repeatedly. There have been some large homes built. There have been, and the other thing that I can't overstate enough is throughout the community, we're seeing a dramatic increase in extreme storm events, as is the rest of, our region, because the weather's changing. And you can say whatever the cause of that you want to say the cause of it is, but the weather is changing. We're seeing more extreme rain events. So there's a lot of contributing factors, and I guess, we always would continue to speak with the district, but I think we are in the midst of studying stormwater in this vicinity as well. And, the purpose of this was to look at what additional stormwater issues would be caused by this proposal if left unabated. But obviously, is when once we have that study complete and we're looking for solutions overall, we will be, as we have with the park district, we'll talk with the school district and see if there's things that can be done to help improve the overall situation, with all of the governmental partners that we have.
There's nothing unreasonable for me to request that they take another look at it to see if they're doing everything they can, right?
Not at all. I just want to make the point that I want to be careful that for us to suggest that, as a fact, that whatever happened before is contributing directly or to a certain extent flooding. That may be true, but we don't know definitively.
Okay.
All right, Trustee Bertucci.
I'll try to make this quick because I know we're getting late. Charles, can you put on the view showed the staging of the buses and that kind of overview?
Yes, just give me a second.
That one, thank you. Okay, so the buses are staging there, and Trustee Scaletta, right, and I never dropped off kids there, but I'm beginning to see this area, the grass area, where the parents are staged with their vehicles. Is there any idea there that if you get rid of the grass and the landscaping, and not necessarily put pavers there, but actually do a cutout and stage the buses there and bring in and allow the parent pickups to come into the lot? Would that at all make any sense?
There's a number of different scenarios that could be looked at. That is one. There'd be a lot of work that would have to be done to the road with the curb and the drainage and the inlets to do that. But you could potentially shift the buses onto the street, similar to Westgate.
It would seem you would have, I don't know, it seems getting into the buses, and then you've got the sidewalk right there, that the kids would be more, okay, I'm getting into the buses versus running out into the streets to have, to try to meet parents who are doing drive-bys or whatever, and organize the parent pickup more into the lot.
And, that was thought about. The challenge with that is you're bringing, lots of kids in big groups going to buses across driveways, and, that's...
They're coming through the parking lot.
So they're going through the parking lot, across the driveway, where you've got a lot of kids going.
I'll give you another one.
That could be more of a safety issue.
Jim?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, I'm going to let the architect.
Can I clarify just one thing?
Hold on, everybody.
Yeah.
Trustee
So,
Bertucci
I'm done.
has the floor.
And I'm done, and I'm going to relinquish it to Jim because
Well,
Jim's...
I will relinquish it.
Okay, fair enough.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Thank you. I was only going to suggest that instead of having the children going across all those lanes of moms and dads picking up and so on, what if we took the buses and put them around to the southern edge? In other words, the parking lot is very long north and south. And if we shortened up the length by just a tiny bit, I'm not sure what is immediately over the property line to the south, but if we took 4 buses and aimed them east in what would be like a little mini parking lot over there, so that all the children can stay far west along that sidewalk, get on the bus that they're supposed to, and then just leave, separate from this whole lot. My reason for saying this is there's an enormous amount of asphalt that is really just dedicated to 4 buses at a time when we've got 500 children getting out. And I don't know how many hundred are getting picked up, but how many fit on a bus?
72 max, but I don't think we're anywhere close.
Yeah, you're probably not quite at that. So, not that it's going to matter tonight. This is not something that I'm suggesting that needs to be solved right this minute. But you guys are creative, great school organizers, and I suggest that maybe you look at shortening up the length of that parking lot by a few stalls and creating an area at the bottom south there where you can park 4 buses and aim them out to the street, and when it's time to go, they go. There's no hazard. And then do your snake. That you like to you call it. So just a thought.
Trustee Grasse has something.
Thank you. I just had one final comment. Just based on the conversation, I'm comfortable with the current stormwater plans and all of that. That makes sense for this addition and this area. It just helped me better understand. But it is a complex issue with definitely greater storms that are affecting the greater community that we as a village hopefully can address too. But I just wanted to let you know, I thank you for the explanation. Helped me understand what you did. Thank you.
Trustee Scaletta.
Just want to clarify, I know that Trustee Schwingbeck knows this, but what we're looking at here, this parking lot, and we see the grass there with the trees in this picture, this is generally not where people are dropping off their kids. That's where people are parking and waiting. Where people are dropping off their kids is to the right. So, if you're looking at the graphic on the right-hand side of the screen, and you start up at the top of Rockwell and you come halfway down the street on Dryden, and you see the beginning of the building. Yeah, Charles, go right about there. Yeah, this is where the traffic flows. Doors open, kids get out of the car, and then the parents leave. This area here that we're seeing really is not the drop-off area. That is a place where people park, for whatever reason it is. Either they're going into the school to volunteer, they're walking their child in. That is parking. That is not the drop-off area. So just to kind of clarify that when we're looking at the drone footage and everything, you're not seeing the real drop-off that I was talking about because it's not in this video.
No. May I?
Go ahead.
The drop-off area and all the congestion is to the north.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that in time, as you guys work through this, get rid of that, bring it into the lot like you did at Olive, like you're doing at Westgate and so on, so that it's not all just given to those 4 buses. That's all. But you're right.
I don't disagree. I just wanted to kind of point
Yeah.
that out because of
Yeah.
Trustee Bertucci's comments.
Yeah.
All right, anything further from the board? What is the will of the board?
I would move approval and concurrence of the Plan Commission recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Scaletta, second by Trustee Tinaglia. Any further questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, it was a long process, but congratulations. Good luck to you during the construction.
Thank you very much.
Right, we have no other new business, and so we'll move on to the report of the village manager. Anything, Mr. Ecklaus?
No, other than the item under petitions and communications.
Right. We do have that one removed item, which is the Arlington Heights Park District permit fee waiver. Mr. Ecklaus, you want to tell us about that?
Sure. The Park District is doing work. They're replacing all their windows in their administration building. The estimated building permit fees for that would be about $8,000. As consistent with their current practice, the staff is recommending that the village board grant the Arlington Heights Park District a waiver of those fees, as we do with governmental bodies.
All right, Melissa, you want to tell us why you removed this item?
Yeah, the Park District should journalize the transaction in their expenses, and it shows up on their financial reports, and the village should journalize it in their receipts, so it shows up in their financial reports.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to address the board on this agenda item? Seeing none, any discussion from the board? Or is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Any further discussion from the board or the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Scaletta.
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Grasse.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci.
Yes.
Trustee Baldino.
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Anything further under petitions and communications from the board? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Tinaglia, seconded by trustee LaBedz. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you all for joining us this evening.
The water.